assistance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing? The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table? Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate today at carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K. Your car can be picked up as soon as the next day. Receive a tax deduction and vacation voucher.
1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
Larry Kudlow here with an urgent retirement warning. Trump's return is set to usher in a new golden age, but growing trade tensions and China's ruthless attack on the dollar have rattled the markets. That's why Warren Buffett just dumped $133 billion in stocks. That's why thousands of informed IRA and 401k savers are now shielding their savings with gold. And the experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you do the same thing. Visit freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908. That's 800-621-3908. You'll get a free gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold tax-free. Plus, see if you qualify for a free home safe and as much as $7,500 in free silver. Once again, that's freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 right now.
The business world is evolving, but saving wherever possible remains smart business. That's why PSE&G designed many different programs to help you save on energy costs. Our experts will help find the energy solutions that are the right fit for you, your business, and your world. Because saving energy impacts so much more than your bottom line. Connect with a PSE&G Energy Efficiency Advisor to learn more at pseg.com/business savings.
This is Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of the New York Board of Rabbis. And this is Reverend A.R. Bernard from the Christian Cultural Center.
Listen to The Rev and the Rabbi
every Sunday morning at 7
on 77 WABC.
Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman brings the famous National Barbecue Festival to Nassau County for the first time ever, June 13th through the 15th at Eisenhower Park. Enjoy unlimited barbecue samples, watch live demos from renowned pitmasters and chefs, sip exclusive festival brews in the beer garden, live music all weekend, award-winning barbecue restaurants, food trucks, a marketplace, kids zone, and a carnival. It's fun for the whole family. The National Barbecue Festival, Father's Day weekend, June 13th to the 15th at Eisenhower Park. Tickets on sale at National BB.
A lot of that processing happens on site, so theoretically they could be more flexible on where they locate, and they could follow where there's available power or other constraints.
Okay, I mean, you use the word theoretically there, which maybe is doing a lot of work, and we'll come back to where people are actually building data centers later on, because I do have a question about that. But roughly, do we have an idea of what proportion of the data center build in the pipeline is for AI, and what proportion of it is training, and what proportion of it is inference?
That's actually very tough to ascertain exactly what the split is. If we look at a large gigawatt campus, some of their buildings could be used for training today, but they could be used for inference in the future. Similarly, we talked about different owner types. A co-location building, they could have multiple tenants, and unless you know exactly who the tenant is and what type of workloads they're running, it's also difficult to know if it is for AI training and inference, but we can infer based on where they're getting built.
But these distinctions, I mean, what I'm hearing here is that it's not just that nobody tells us which it is that makes it a little bit of a gray area. It's that actually even a data center itself might sometimes, at one point in its life, be doing one thing, and at a different point in its life be doing something else.
I think for power folks, I often try to frame it like a data center is very similar to a battery. Like batteries can do multiple different types of energy services or ancillary services. A data center can do multiple different types of workload. It can be doing AI training or cloud as long as the configuration is correct, or it could do those types of workload.
Got it. So just because you've optimized one to one thing doesn't mean that it can't do the other.
Yeah, and particularly in co-location data centers where Basically, these companies are renting out their IT servers to tenants. Those tenants are probably doing different types of workload. There can be multiple applications in a data center or workload.
Which is often why you see in co-location that they're optimizing for everything because they don't know who their tenant is. I will add, though, in terms of AI data centers, that they are quite different from data centers today. We already talked that these data centers are getting larger. A lot of that has to do with the GPUs in those servers being much more.
So you just, what are GPUs?
Graphical processing units.
Which is?
They're similar to CPUs, central processing units, but they're very specialized and
they're cooler, basically.
They're good.
I think now we've got to the level of understanding I'm good with. So it's like a chip, but it's a different kind of chip.
Yeah, it's very good at parallel processing, which is optimized for training large language models. I'm sure lots of people have heard of NVIDIA and their GPUs. A lot of tech companies are also building their AI accelerators, which are specialized chips for these models. So a lot of the design of the data center today, in order to accommodate AI training workloads, are different. A lot of that has to do with these GPUs, and the racks that they're on are going to be much more power dense, which means they need a lot more sophisticated cooling technologies to accommodate those sort of rack densities that could be 10x to what typical data centers are today. We've seen, for example, Meta scrapping data centers that were not AI ready, so it's quite difficult to retrofit a data center from 5 years ago to an AI workload. So while a data center in the future could have multiple uses, it's also very specialized to what they're going to be running.
Got it. Would it be right for me to say that like a data center designed for AI can be used for other things too, but a data center not designed for AI probably can't do AI? Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a pretty fair statement. We're basically seeing new data centers being designed in a way that allows for AI training. And so there's an influence of like AI and data center design to be larger and more power intense.
So in these training data centers, they're building these models. And one of the charts in the note that I really love but haven't quite fully digested is one showing the amount of, and you don't have to explain this unit, amount of teraflops required to teraflop. That's just a unit of like computer work, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a basic unit of computation.
Yeah. The amount of teraflops needed to design different AI models as they become more and more sort of sophisticated. And so obviously there's been an expectation that that trend is going to continue, and everyone was, freaking out in both good ways and bad ways about all of the power demand that this will entail. And then I remember DeepSeek came along, and a lot of the people were like, oh, this changes everything. Can you just provide a bit of clarity on all of this?
There's a couple things I really tried to understand about all of this, just in terms of like power market fundamentals. I think when it comes to like forecasting for power demand, all things come down to some very basic constructs. It's usually like how much quantity of something and then the energy intensity of that something. And for data centers, it's a very similar process.
Stay tuned for more of my interview with Helen and Natalie. To hear the full conversation, subscribe to Switched On wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tom Rowlands-Rees, and this is Switched On Bloomberg Radio.
This is New York's only 24-hour source for world markets and breaking business news.
Bloomberg 1130.
Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at CBS News.
CBS News brief. Sources tell CBS News U.S. officials have been told Israel is fully ready to launch an operation in Iran. It comes amid rising tensions and talks between the U.S. and Iran for its nuclear program. President Trump said
they can't have a nuclear weapon. Personally, they can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
The State Department has told non-essential personnel at U.S. embassies in Baghdad, Bahrain, and Kuwait to leave. The U.S. and China say they've agreed on a framework to resolve their trade dispute. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says President Trump
spoke to his trade team, who did a fantastic job negotiating this on behalf of the United States and meeting with their Chinese counterparts. The president is talking to them about the details of it now.
The Beach Boys made California surf rock popular. Brian Wilson was the visionary. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2000, and his family says he has died at age 82. CBS News Brief, I'm Jennifer Kuiper.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is the Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World's headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. Let's update our top stories in the markets. Tonight, President Trump said he will be sending letters to countries setting unilateral tariff rates within the next 1.5 to 2 weeks. Here is Trump speaking with reporters at the Kennedy Center in Washington.
We're rocking in terms of deals. Now, at a certain point, we're just going to send letters out. And I think you understand that, say, this is the deal. You can take it or you can leave it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to shop in the United States, as I said.
Earlier, Trump said the framework with Beijing has been completed, and now China will be supplying rare earth minerals and magnets up front. We got a reaction from Jennifer Welch of Bloomberg Economics.
China now realizes they have this major hammer in the form of these critical mineral export controls that they can leverage, and I think that really dilutes the U.S. ability to push China towards the deal that Washington says it wants.
That is Bloomberg's Jennifer Welch. Now, tariffs for the U.S. and China will be maintained at their current lower levels. However, remember, that number is much higher than before President Trump took office in January. By the way, President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping still must formally sign off on this agreement. After the bell in the U.S., we heard from Oracle. The company reported adjusted revenue for the latest quarter above estimates. More importantly, Oracle now sees full-year revenue growth of more than 70%. The stock was up by 7% in late U.S. trading. G7 nations will not try to reach consensus on a joint communique at next week's summit in Canada. We are told this is due to a wide gap separating the U.S. from other G7 members on things like Ukraine, climate change, and other issues. We check markets for you throughout the day here on Bloomberg. In Tokyo, stronger yen, 143.90. Weaker Nikkei, down 0.7%. In Hong Kong, Hang Seng down 0.4%. On the Chinese mainland, CSI 300 weaker by 0.1%. But in Seoul, the Kospi is rising by 0.5%. Global news 24 hours a day, and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. This is Bloomberg.
Get the best in finance, investment, and economics with the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube.
We are seeing stocks rise around the world.
We have a massive rally in the bond market.
Record revenue out of Apple.
We found inflation moderating.
I'm Tom Keene, inviting you to watch and listen to the best analysis on business and investment. Visit the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube to hear from the smartest names on Wall Street. Just head to YouTube and search Bloomberg Podcasts today.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
I want to learn how to cook, but I keep ordering takeout.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. In just 15 minutes a day, Babbel will help you start having conversation in as little as 3 weeks. Words and phrases you'll actually use. So when someone asks, how's your French going? You can say,
Bobby facilite grandement l'apprentissage des nouvelles langues.
Now save up to 50% on your Babbel subscription at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Well, we have a couple of more decent days coming up in the weather. Foresight, clear and hazy, low temperatures by morning, 65 to near 70 tomorrow. The hazy sun will continue for us. High temperature, low 80s across much of Long Island. Near 90, though, in Midtown Manhattan. At night, some scattered clouds in the 60s. Partly sunny, 70s and 80s on Friday. And Saturday, mostly cloudy with a chance of showers, low 70s. This is Gary Best with your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Bloomberg Radio, on demand and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, a conversation with Mona Mahajan of Edward Jones.
A couple of things come to mind when I see this type of print. Number one, it does look like, as we just talked about, the services side of the inflation print came out slightly softer than expected. So as we talked about, 2/3 of the basket is services. And if that part of the economy is starting to just cool a bit,
that will be reflected in the broader CPI basket. I think a two handle, to your point, we're still closer to that 2% target than we were really any time over the last year or so. So that is also probably a benign factor as we think about inflation. But I'll finally also note, as we think about companies and how they're managing tariffs, certainly during this period of pause, it is possible that companies continue to build inventories. And as they are building inventories, they don't have to then pass through as much of that price increase. And so we could see, a lot of companies even thinking about Christmas inventories. If that continues between now and July, companies have adjusted, they're innovative, they find a way around some of these headwinds that we see in the economy.
Does that hurt them later, though, if the consumer winds up getting hurt and they're stuck with all that inventory?
It will come down to consumer resilience, and thus far, consumption has held in there. If we look at second quarter GDP, potentially, consumption looks above 2%, higher than the first quarter. So we are seeing a consumer that's relatively resilient. But yes, overbuilding inventories can come back to bite you. But from a consumer perspective, it's not a bad place to be.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com. This is a special edition of the Podcast Spotlight Hour on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg Law's June Grosso is off today. Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Podcast Spotlight Hour on Bloomberg Radio.
This is Switched On Bloomberg Radio. On today's episode, we're looking at the UN's Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation with BNEF analyst Leila Kampar. You've talked a little bit about the challenges of, maybe different degrees of commitment to enforcing this. The UK and Canada have turned it into law. Maybe some other countries will. Is that something that we see happening? Yeah, how does this all play into the relationships between all the different countries involved?
More or less, the relationships between countries don't seem to be affected as much if they're all operating under an international scheme that they've signed up to do. When we talk about geopolitics in CORSIA, I think the main question that rises is, will the U.S. actually participate in CORSIA, given the Trump administration and their view on climate policies in general? But the relationships between countries themselves, having them governed by a scheme like CORSIA, actually protects them from any tension, which is a solution that we see to other compliance carbon schemes trying to expand to international aviation, but could not because of these issues and these complexities.
So, Leila, we've kind of established a little bit about the quantitatively how CORSIA works, but you are a BNEF analyst, and a very fine one indeed, which means that you presumably have somewhere a spreadsheet where you've punched the numbers and figured out what all of this means. You put it into a report, which BNEF clients can access at bnef.com or on the terminal via BNEF Go. But you will have created a forecast, I presume, of what all of this means. So talk us through the numbers. How much demand is there going to be for either emissions reductions or offsets because of the phase of CORSIA that we're currently in?
Yeah, that spreadsheet did give me a lot of headaches, but it's done. It's out now, and it looks beautiful. So for the report that we're talking about, there are several scenarios that we ran. The base case scenario just assumes business as usual. So in phase 1, we have a total of 129 participating markets. In phase 2, we have 135. I will just preface this and point out that CORSIA credits are available to everyone and not just airlines, but our forecasts and our scenarios are based completely on what airlines will have to offset or reduce emissions, and that is what drives demand, or at least the main driver of demand for CORSIA credits. So in phase 1, we estimate that the airlines offsetting requirements will total 115 million tons by 2026, and then they will climb to a total of 1.23 billion tons by end of phase 2. Now, phase 2 is 3 times as long as phase one, but also, as we mentioned, it does include the major or big markets that operate a lot of the flight routes like Brazil and Russia and China and India.
So just to clarify, these numbers you're saying, these are cumulative. It's not per year, it's for the entire phase.
Yes.
Got it.
The annual demand for CORSIA eligible credits would peak in 2035 at around 161 million tons of CO2.
And when you say it peaks, that's the last year of phase two. So presumably something is coming after. So it's not like it's going to peak and go down necessarily. It's just that's the end of the runway.
Yeah,
yes.
So it will reach 161 million tons of CO2 in 2035. One last thing I'd like to note is that apart from passenger flights, we also account for cargo flights. Now, in phase one, which is now, they are very little. They account for an additional 2% of emissions, let's say. But once we have China and Russia in phase two, cargo flights will account for around 9% of total emissions. So they will also contribute to that additional demand or jump in demand that we see in phase two.
I'm going to ask a really, really stupid question.
No stupid questions.
Well, you haven't heard my question yet. Is this a lot?
This is actually a great question. If you compare CORSIA with the wider or global carbon credits market, where it's very messy, it's oversupplied, everyone and anyone can buy a credit, that's actually very little. And even if you compare that with the demand for credits from corporates that we go over in our long-term carbon credits demand outlook that my colleague Kyle published a couple months back, it's 22.5 times higher than airlines' demand for CORSIA in 2035. But if you look at airlines on their own, it is a lot for airlines. So since 2015, we tracked the buying activity of credits for airlines, and that amounted to around 36 million tons, and that's only 24% of airlines' offsetting requirements in phase one alone.
So this is, to my question, is this a lot? It's a big deal for airlines. It's not as much a big deal for carbon markets. Is that a fair framing?
Not really, because it's a little more nuanced than that. It's a big deal for airlines, definitely, because they need to buy them. They're obliged to, and they're expensive.
So I was half right.
Half right. But if you want to talk about wider carbon credits and markets, CORSIA is the closest thing carbon credits or voluntary carbon markets have gotten to standardization or legitimacy. And because you have that UN stamp of approval on that carbon credit, everyone is attracted to it and wants to buy it because that helps them hedge against reputational risk. But the quantity of it is another issue, and that's something we go over in our supply outlook in the report.
So this is a big deal for airlines. We agreed on that. And then it might not be quite as big a deal for sort of maybe the poor quality carbon offset markets, but it is a big deal for this idea of like higher quality offsets. It's something like to what you're describing is almost like it might crystallize the creation of a sort of a higher tier of offset and solve some of these problems that the broader market has suffered from. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, that's quite exciting because this quality issue has been something we've been talking about for a long time. So I'm really happy to hear about this. So anyway, you were just about to talk about the supply of these high quality credits and of course direct emissions reductions. So I'm sure in your spreadsheet you calculated that as well. So what did the spreadsheet tell us?
So the question of supply in CORSIA is even trickier than demand. So ICAO decides whether a credit is eligible or not. And they publish this document at the beginning of every phase telling us what we can buy and what we cannot buy for it to count towards CORSIA. But then they also add another layer and they say that credit needs to be approved by your host country and corresponding adjustments must be applied so that we don't double count. And that does enforce or reinforce the environmental impact of CORSIA. But then we know governments and we know the UN and we know that they're slow and bureaucratic. And because of that, right now we only have 15 million credits that are available for airlines to use towards their offsetting obligations. And frankly, that's nothing. These 15 million tons come from forestry projects in Guyana that the government has approved. But all the other projects and credits that are eligible for CORSIA are still waiting approval from their host countries, and their host countries still need to go through a bit of a process to submit their corresponding adjustments and the requirements and so on. So it might take some time, and that makes supply very, very uncertain. In our outlook, we estimate that supply could reach 306 million in phase 1 and 1.53 billion in phase 2. That's also cumulative, and it surpasses offsetting requirements in each phase, but that happening is contingent on governments getting those approvals in place.
I mean, it kind of comes back to the previous point, doesn't it? That this whole thing is a forcing mechanism for governments that are interested in offset markets to kind of get their act together in actually defining what good is, enforcing what good is, in order to enable that to happen.
Yeah, correct. And that is a double-edged sword, I would say, because on one hand, yes, you have some enforcement and some policy mechanism, but then if you leave it completely up to governments without any overarching standards between them, it could create some inconsistencies.
And so, final question about your spreadsheet. You've looked at demand, you've looked at supply. So the inevitable question that follows is, what did your spreadsheet tell us about the price?
So in my spreadsheet, when I put those demand and supply balances against each other, we estimated the average price for CORSIA credits in phase 1 to be $16.7 per ton and an average of $49.4 per ton in phase 2. Right now, the auctioned price of CORSIA credits is around $21.7 per ton, and that actually decreases in 2026 to $12.4 per ton because in phase 1, demand is so little, it sits comfortably below available supply if, like we said, governments approve those credits. But then, as soon as we enter phase 2, which is in 2027, I mentioned that offsetting requirements jump by around 50%, and suddenly you have that spike in demand, and you're sort of scrambling to get enough credits to cover that, and more expensive credits come in, and they set the price at $96.5 per ton in 2027, and that's the peak price. The year after, the market is still slightly oversupplied, and prices fall to around $40 per ton.
Okay, so these are, maybe these prices in the early phases of the scheme are, in terms of the big picture of carbon markets, that's quite cheap. But it gets to being pretty meaningful by the end of the scheme.
Yeah, they do. So even, frankly, even at the beginning of the scheme, I know that $12 and $16 per ton might sound cheap, but if you compare that to the wider voluntary carbon market prices, these are pretty decent because low integrity credits or low quality credits that are flooding the market right now trade at below $3 per ton.
So the current voluntary phase, you mentioned there's 4 major markets that are involved: India, China, Brazil, Russia, and they're going to be joining in the next phase. But given the current state of global politics, and in particular US politics, it's not, to me, outside the realms of possibilities that the US might not be willing to participate, just given the political narratives we've seen recently. Is it something that people are talking about as a realistic possibility?
Yes, definitely. The US leaving seems more and more of like a reality to CORSIA. Now, like we mentioned before, CORSIA is actually not legally binding, and there are no consequences for any government to leave, and the US has the option to do so. And we did model that. So if the US drops out of the aviation decarbonization scheme, it could reduce demand for CORSIA credits by 3 million tons in phase 1. That's 2% of the base case demand, and 184 million tons in phase 2, or 15% of the base case. And in that scenario, because you have less demand and the market is still oversupplied, credit prices don't peak. There are no dramatic peaks in price. It reaches an all-time low of $12 per ton in 2026, and then they will gradually rise and peak at $44.4 per ton in 2030.
This has been Switched On Bloomberg Radio. To hear the rest of this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to subscribe to Switched On wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
From the financial capital of the world, broadcasting 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130.
So we're dealing with Japan, we're dealing with South Korea, we're dealing with a lot of them. We're dealing with about 15 countries, but as you know, we have about 150 plus, and you can't do that. So we're going to be sending letters out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, to countries, telling them what the deal is, like I did with EU.
World leaders better keep an eye on their mailboxes, as President Trump says they'll soon be getting written notification of tariff rates. The latest threat coming just a day after Chinese and U.S. officials talked down their trade tensions. Live from Singapore, this is Insight with Haslinda Amin. Now, those comments from Donald Trump hitting the dollar and U.S. futures and sending haven assets such as treasuries and gold higher. Earlier, the president said China has agreed to supply magnets and rare earth metals, while the U.S. will drop threats to revoke the visas of Chinese students. Harvey Kay, Executive Director of U.S. Critical Materials, will joining us to discuss the huge leverage China has over Trump with its stranglehold on the supply of processed rare earths.
And a long-term theme that I think is one of the most bankable, and it might take in 30 years, this will be a great success, and that is you should invest in India.
Also ahead, Double Line's Jeffrey Gunlar tells us that India is the long-term bet for investors looking to move out of dollar-based assets. We'll get more on how and where global investors can put their money with Kotak Mahindra Bank President Gautami Gavankar. Welcome to Insight. Our top story today. President Trump says he's planning to send letters to trading partners within the next 2 weeks to set unilateral tariff rates. That's ahead of a July 9 deadline to reimpose higher duties on dozens of economies. His team continues to work on bilateral deals with key partners, including India, Japan, and South Korea. But when it comes to the biggest deal, Trump says Washington's framework trade agreement with Beijing is a done deal that will include upfront shipments of rare earth materials. China dominates the market for rare earths necessary for defense and EV production globally. It seemed to have gained the upper hand in trade negotiations after essentially shutting down exports of rare earth magnets. The relative calm in markets as trade tensions appeared to ease didn't last long. Trump's latest tariff comment is reigniting uncertainty. Stocks are down along with the dollar, and April Hong is here. In April, it's risk-off, havens catching a bid, but not the dollar. Yeah, it is definitely risk-off in the region, in U.S. futures today. I mean, it's this thing about the U.S. policy uncertainty that markets have just been grappling with already for much of this year, now reintroduced, re-emerging given these trade tensions and uncertainty. So we're seeing the U.S. futures are down along with some stocks in the Asia Pacific. What is up? It's the VIX futures along with gold and the yen, highest levels in more than a week for some of them. And of course, this feels almost like that Trump-C phone call didn't happen. All in, investors are cautious. You get the sense that, there's also a layer of investor caution given the tensions in the Middle East, along with this coming ahead of the auction of 30-year bonds in the U.S. Now, flip the board because, as you say, the dollar has certainly not been catching this safe haven bid. We've seen it falling by the most in about a week to the lowest level since July 2023. It's already 8% down this year, and we've already heard from the likes of Paul Tudor Jones seeing that this time next year he sees it 10% lower, and expecting as well a dramatic fall in short-term interest rates. All in, it feels as though when it comes to the dollar, whether it is good or bad news, good or bad data, that markets sell it. If you take a look at the U.S. inflation print over overnight as well, which similarly weighed on the dollar. We saw core CPI rising lower than forecast. This was for the fourth straight month. Now, it's worth noting that our colleagues at Bloomberg Intelligence don't see this as because of a lack of tariff pass-through. This, to them, seems more like being offset by deflation in areas including services. That's worth keeping an eye on. All in, Has, it feels as though this dollar frown is just getting worse.
Errol, thank you so much for that. So Trump says China has assured the supply of rare earth magnets, but the country's stranglehold on their production may give Beijing a huge leverage in future trade negotiations. Joining us now is Harvey Kaye, Executive Director at U.S. Critical Minerals. It's a privately held rare earth exploration and development company with strategic holdings in Montana and Idaho. Good to have you with us. Would you say, Harvey, that a trade spec essentially is about rare earths, critical minerals, and it really is about supply chain warfare?
Actually, there are two elements to this, and you are exactly right, because this is an issue that has been going on for probably 20 years. The Chinese, to their credit, have used a long-term strategy, and many 15, 20 years ago, they dropped the price of rare earths substantially and made it easy for Western countries to get their supply and to be able to simply order and have it delivered. When it became a geopolitical issue, which is very recently, okay, then it became a negotiating tactic, and the U.S. found itself kind of behind the scene, having basically not really developed internal infrastructure and the supply of rare earths that actually exists here. And so over the last, let's call it 8 or 9 months, the realization that is, in fact, a negotiating lever and something that makes you vulnerable has accelerated the interest and the opportunities for U.S.-based companies. To that end, our company, U.S. Critical Materials, has a deposit in Montana that is considered the highest grade rare earths ever found in America, ranging somewhere in the 9% range, which is extremely high. What has also been a Chinese advantage has been their ability to process. And even though some of the processing has been environmentally difficult, there's been a full court press to develop new, modern, cutting-edge technologies to process here. We are involved in both aspects of that. So
the thing is, Harvey, we have seen this play out before. Back in 2010, China did shut its exports of rare earths to Japan amid a fishing spat between the two nations. I'm just wondering why the world has not learned from this.
Well, that's a great question that you've asked. And the reality of it is we have. And the reason I say that we have is because under the current administration, they have passed executive orders. They have set up a fund in order to develop an offtake marketplace for U.S. producers so that the vulnerability to price manipulation is no longer what it was before. Once burned, shame on us. Twice burned, you can't allow that to happen again. So to that
Yet here we are, Harvey. Yet here we are with China dominating rare earths, 70% of, if I understand it right, mining, 90% of refining. Nobody comes close. How has China managed to do this? Is it about its Belt and Road Initiative, where it's looking for those supply chains outside of China as well?
Well, again, an excellent question. And the answer is yes, the Belt and Road approach has been very successful. We have a 4-star general that is a retired general that is advising us. And in Africa, for example, all the mines are currently owned and controlled by the Chinese. Okay, we have allowed that to happen. Basically, I would say complacency. I would say it was easy because China made it easy. Now, there's this stark realization that it is, in fact, a political weapon. And obviously, this country realizes that they have to do everything they can to support the development of a domestic rare earth and rare earth processing infrastructure. To that end, there is full speed ahead. We are working with Idaho National Labs, which is one of the major national labs, to develop a new state-of-the-art processing technology, and we're moving along quite briskly at that. You put the money to it, you put know-how and ingenuity to it, and you put a realization that you have to do this because ultimately it's a weapon we can't allow to just be that way. So it's happening. It's going to take some years, but it will happen.
Well, you say it's going to take some years. It's actually a lot of years. We're looking at perhaps 10, 15 years from now. In the meantime, as it stands now, isn't it true that China has the ability to basically shut down U.S. defense production, given that, it requires, if I understand it right, 12 critical minerals for defense, and China has control of them?
Actually, there's 17. Which includes rare earths and things like gallium and other materials like that, which we happen to have in very high grades and relatively easily available. Where, with deep respect, I would not agree with you. It's not 10 years. It's not 15 years. It didn't take that long, for the Manhattan Project or for anything where you put the money, the talent, and the focus on it to accomplish a goal. And we believe that it is 5 years. We expect that we will have the ability to start extracting and processing ore, including gallium, by the end of this year. And so the government is assisting in fast-tracking permitting. They're assisting in creating fail-safe markets so that price manipulation will not affect the industry, which is a benefit to U.S. critical materials. And there's a major effort to negate the situation that they're in right now. So I wouldn't count the USA out at the moment. I would say that there's a focus and a will to accomplish the goal that we've just spoken about.
How about other alternatives? Some talk about Ukraine, Greenland. How feasible are they?
Frankly, not so much. The reason for, and by the way, the amount of time that it would take for them to go online would be actually longer than it will take in the United States. And so Greenland, for example, talking about gallium, which is used in 3,800 military applications. And again, we have high grades of gallium, and we will expect to start processing it and making it available by the end of this year. Our percentages run 180 to 380 parts per million. Greenland is about 60 to 70 parts per million, and Ukraine is about the same. So the grade is low. The problems of actually mining it when one is in a war state country, the other is not having the infrastructure, and they're just not ready. And so it appears that we will be able to bring our domestic supplies and, most importantly, processing online before that occurs. But we encourage it. The more people, the more countries that are working on the process and extraction, it's good for everybody. And so, we want to be cooperative and we want to work with everybody.
This affects everybody, as you suggested. No minerals, no missiles. How about the likes of NATO and other U.S. allies? How are they approaching it? How are they protecting themselves? And what are the efforts that you're seeing so far?
We are in communication with users of rare earth materials in Europe and in the United States, and they are looking for supply. And it's not that you need huge quantities. It's you need purity, you need availability, and you need it to be price competitive. We can do all three of those. So Europe is looking for supply. We are in discussions with certain automotive companies because critical minerals are incredibly necessary for the automotive industry. We are in discussions with chip manufacturers. They just announced the Stargate project here in the United States. That is multi-billions that are going to be put into artificial intelligence, chips, and the like. It all sounds good, right, but if you don't have the supply of rare earths, you can't do it. So there's a tremendous incentive for the government, and particularly the legislation and the recent executive orders and National Energy Security Act, which also covers critical minerals, to accelerate and to assist the companies such as ours to get online and get it done now.
Are we supposed to say that the outcome will shape the future of global military power? As it stands now, how do you see this playing out? Who do you see leading? I mean, essentially, can the US and the rest of the world play catch up in a cost-effective way when it comes to rare earths and critical minerals?
The answer, in my opinion, is yes. Why? You have to. Two, the material is available. There are billions of dollars worth of rare earths in our case and in other supplies that we know of here in the United States. There's a growing desire to cooperate between the companies such as ourselves and others to fix this problem. And so while everybody is an entrepreneurial person and wants to do the best for their shareholders and their company, the reality is there is a stark realization of the problem as you've enunciated. And so there's more cooperation than you might suspect between the various companies, both in terms of processing and in terms of extraction. And the government is now assisting in making this happen, as opposed to making it difficult, where we used to talk about 20 years to bring a process on a mine online. It's now down, as I say, 2, 3, 4 years. It has to be.
Harvey?
Yep.
You talked about how your company wants to expand production and capacity. How are you looking to fund that?
We are a private company, not a public company at this time. We are funded privately, and we are in discussions with multiple institutional investors who now understand that an investment in rare earths not only is patriotic, but it is also highly potentially rewarding because of all.
So no plans to IPO, Harvey?
We do. We've gotten multiple calls with various firms to do that. We are also working with our government, and we're working with other repositories of capital that have strategic desires to make rare earths available, etc. So our objective is that over the next 6 to 9 months, it's full speed ahead on execution. That's extraction of ore, fast tracking permitting, working very fast and very quickly.
Harvey?
Yes.
Might you IPO in the next 12 months?
I would say that is highly likely.
Javi, thank you so much for your time today. Javi K, Executive Director at U.S. Critical Materials. Well, still ahead this hour, Jeffrey Gundlach is sounding a warning on the U.S. debt burden, telling us a reckoning is coming. Our exclusive conversation is next. Keep it here with us. This is Bloomberg. In case you missed it on the opening trade.
What trade does is it meets a consumer demand. Consumer demand is not weakening. China supplies a little over 30% of the what we eat, wear, and consume. That's unlikely to change anytime soon. I think that supply will find new homes potentially. But our reliance as a global economy on Chinese manufacturing is unlikely to change fundamentally anytime soon.
Don't miss the opening trade live every weekday.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jennifer Zabasanja in Cape Town, South Africa, and this is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg brings you breaking news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 3,000 journalists and analysts in more than 100 bureaus across the globe. Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
Welcome back to the circuit. This time, we're taking you to the frontier.
Do we have the camera, or do we? We don't want to lose you, Emily, in all of this.
To meet the people rewriting the rules of code and culture. How do you personally grapple with the pace of it all?
It does feel like it's going very fast.
What's the point of this?
What is the point of any of this?
Tune into season 3 of The Circuit with me, Emily Shea. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Originals and Bloomberg TV.
Why do the biggest names in business choose Bloomberg Television?
That's a great question. Very good question. Good question. Great question. I so appreciate that question. Please let me ask interesting questions.
Bloomberg Television. Top experts, great questions. Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
The conversation around your company.
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
The news level was premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
Can't fake fashion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily. Every business day at 2 p.m. Eastern. Only on Bloomberg.
Welcome back. You're watching Insight. DoubleLine Capital's CEO Jeffrey Gundlach believes Americans' debt burden and interest expenses have become untenable and may lead to investors to move out of dollar-based assets. He spoke to us exclusively at the Bloomberg Global Credit Forum in Los Angeles.
The reckoning is coming is that we have to somehow figure out how we're going to deal with $37 trillion. I mean, we're actually going to hit the 37 trillion number for real. It's still 36.95 trillion, but it's going up quickly. So yeah, there's going to have to be some pretty creative thinking, and the market's starting to believe that. So the previous group talked about the capital flows. And one of the reasons that the U.S. is underperforming at this point is so much money came into the United States since, say, 2015 or so, or 2005. And there was a net investment position. Foreigners were investing more in the U.S. than the U.S. was investing outside the country, to the tune of $3 trillion. That was about 15, 17 years ago. It's now over $25 trillion is the net investment position, and the dollar is falling. So it's not inconceivable that some of that $25 trillion that came in over just a couple of, not even 2 decades, could go out. And so this is the moment where finally you have the setup where non-U.S. investment, even if you're a dollar-based investor, you should be thinking about increasing your allocations to non-dollar investments. And it's already working. It's already working.
So there's so much to unpack there. I want to talk about the idea that there could be this 25 trillion or some of it that moves away from the US. Right, exactly, whatever it is. Yeah. 30 trillion, you're getting trillions of dollars moving out of U.S. assets.
Yeah.
How high or what kind of behavior do you have to see in a 30-year bond to like it again, given the fact that you've been very vocal
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I've come to the idea that as the Fed eases and when the economy really does weaken more, the Treasury will continue to go up at the long end. And so for now, we're very uninvolved in the long-term Treasury bond. But there will come a moment where you have to pivot because there's going to be a response. And I've got many ideas of what that response might be, but one of the leading candidates would be quantitative easing. So you get to a point where the rate is so uncomfortably high. What is that number? I'm going to guess 6%, where they say this is going to be something that we're going to have to be running a $5 trillion budget deficit with all this bond issuance when we go into a recession. And so they'll pivot. I believe this is a sensible idea. There's other ideas too, but the leading candidate is they will announce quantitative easing.
All right, coming up, buyout talk is set to dominate today's Toyota Motor annual general meeting. The latest from Tokyo next. Keep it here with us. This is Bloomberg.
As Bloomberg's global financial correspondent, I get to meet the people shaping the way money flows around the world. And I want to bring you with me.
The capitalist system is the best system in the world.
For 22 years, Bloomberg surveillance has been about conversation.
Mike Mayo of Wells Fargo.
Why is banking finally getting a leg up?
You've had 15 years of financial repression. Now you're going back to normal.
Ed Morse of Hartree Partners.
What is our role in the global energy market?
We have transformed the energy markets of the world, including the oil market.
Bloomberg surveillance.
Weekday mornings at 7.
We've got two of the smartest people on the planet.
Listen on Bloomberg 1130.
Watch on YouTube.
Or catch us on Bloomberg Originals.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Overall, it's going to be a nice nighttime with mainly clear skies, a little bit hazy, low temperatures by morning, 65 to near 70. For Thursday, mostly sunny skies, hazy, warm and humid, high temperature, low 80s across much of Long Island, 85 to 90 in the city, though. Back in the 60s we go at night. And for Friday, partly sunny in the 70s and 80s, to the showers on Saturday in the 70s. This is Gary Best with the 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
The data that matters for your investment. Single stock volumes really surge and analysis on the companies making news on Wall Street. Supermicro is catching our eyes.
It's a quick look at crypto stocks.
Listen to the Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg.
A big bounce in the market today. We're on a brutal 3-day stretch.
It's your short audio report on the day's winners and losers in the stock market.
The highest intraday jump since 2020.
Subscribe to the Stock Movers Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Welcome back. You're watching Insight. Shares of Toyota Motor are in focus today as the company holds its annual general meeting. Chairman Akio Toyoda is expected to retain his board seat despite concerns about his role in a controversial group company takeover. For more on this, let's bring in Bloomberg senior editor Reed Stevenson in Tokyo. Reed, we know that lots of criticisms in the lead up to the AGM. What's the mood expected to be?
Well, I think the AGM is pretty much wrapped up at this point, and interestingly, a lot of questions around Toyota Industries did not come up. A lot of the talk was just about, sort of big vision type stuff for the Toyota Group. But really, that's in contrast to the Toyota Industries AGM that we saw 2 days ago, where there was indeed a lot of questions, a lot of criticism even over the price at which, the Toyota Group is trying to take Toyota Industries private. And, those questions are going to continue, whether it's a shareholder meeting or not, in the coming months until this formal tender offer is launched in December.
Of course, Toyota's re-election is also a point of contention here, but no matter the criticism, he's getting his seat back.
Indeed. I mean, first of all, he carries the Toyota family name, but what you did see in the past few years is a slight sort of downtick in his reappointment vote rate, and especially last year when a lot of issues around certification caused proxy advisory firms to recommend voting against him. They've kind of withdrawn that and now endorse him this year. So what we're expecting, and the numbers actually come out in a day or two, what we're expecting is actually a slight uptick in those numbers, which I'm sure, is gratifying. But on the other hand, is that enough to remove a lot of this sort of talk and criticism around Toyota Industries, especially by investors who feel that the price is too low? I'm not so sure about that.
We talk about the future of Toyota. We have to talk about EVs. Where is Toyota on that?
Akio Toyoda, the chairman and grandson of the founder, is, really the face of Toyota's strategy here. And what he's adopted is something called the multi-path approach, which is to make sure every customer in every market has an option to buy combustible engine vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and EVs. And, Toyota and Akio Toyoda himself has been criticized for kind of slow walking towards EVs, but, he's been proven right in many ways, because a lot of the car makers that rush.
All right, let me move over to another live feed, and 1 hour in. Welcome to Danny Finance. So we are 1 hour in. I'm gonna put it down for a second right here. This is Danny Finance, and this is live coverage of the LA riots, day 6. So I'm going to look for another feed. I want to see if I get an aerial one or something along that line. And thank you for watching. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm just going to let this roll. And going to get multiple feeds. Let's see these. Trying to get an aerial one, actually. Let me see if I can find another one. This is not an aerial one. I was hoping to get an aerial one.
So, this is day 6. This is really let me check case. Well, that one is already streamed. Well, I'll try this one for now. Let's try this feed. Try this feed, and then of course I'm playing Bloomberg Radio. Being that it's Danny Finance, and financial information there is one of my stations that I listen to. Excuse me. Normally, if I wasn't covering this event, I would probably talk about money, investments. But right now I'm covering this here because it seems to dominate the topic. So I'm gonna keep it here. So anybody have a particular question about anything financial related or otherwise, you can ask in the chat, and I'll try to answer it. I know I get some crypto questions. I haven't done a crypto video in a while. Excuse me, because quite frankly, some of the crypto, my position has changed. Some, of course, Bitcoin is still the big dog, and of course that one is doing pretty well. I do have a few other ones. I do have Shiba Inu. I still have that. I'm still holding that. So I still have some others, but my position has changed somewhat. I no longer recommend people getting into meme coins unless you're just really speculating, and like I said, really speculating. In other words, pump and dump. I'm out of that. I don't do that anymore. I'm out of that thing. I'm more into long-term investing. Of course, I still have portfolios. My wife and I. Mutual funds. Her, retirement funds from her companies where she worked at, like 401k and so on. Individual stocks, quite a few different ones, especially dividend stocks. Of course, reinvesting your dividends to build your portfolio. And of course, now, recently, precious metals. Small percentage in precious metals. So try to be diversified, some percentage on crypto. The majority is, of course, the stocks, mutual funds, and individual stocks. Of course, IRA, some of it is an IRA, Roth IRA, traditional IRA. Excuse me. Also, company sponsored retirement like 401k, 453, 453B. So there you go. If anybody have questions, feel free to ask. And thank you for watching. Enjoy the live stream.
News. And I'm Jason Kelly, and we're back with more episodes of our show, The Deal. The theme of this season, On the Road. We're bringing you more behind-the-scenes conversations with the biggest names in sports, business, and culture, like Melody Hobson.
I started to study women's sports like an 11-year-old studies baseball statistics, and I got dangerous in seeing up arrows.
Susie Wolf.
When you're competing, you're not thinking about any fear or any worries of what could happen.
Josh Harris.
You can't do a good deal with a bad person.
Jay Bat.
At the end of the day, there's never been a better time to be a student athlete.
And more. Stay tuned.
In case you missed it on the opening trade.
What trade does is it meets the consumer demand. Consumer demand is not weakening. China supplies a little over 30% of the world we eat, wear, and consume. That's unlikely to change anytime soon. I think that supply will find new homes potentially. But our reliance as a global economy on Chinese manufacturing is unlikely to change fundamentally anytime soon.
On the CFA Trade live every weekday. What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We're basically deep in the European earnings season. Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Welcome back to the circuit. This time, we're taking you to the frontier.
Do we have camera or do we don't want to lose you, Emily, in all of this?
To meet the people rewriting the rules of code and culture.
How do you personally grapple with the pace of it all?
It does feel like it's going very fast.
What's the point of this?
What is the point of any of this?
Tune into Season 3 of The Circuit with me, Emily Chang, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Originals and Bloomberg TV.
Is this a United States problem or is this a global problem? Can you hide by going to invest in places like, say, Europe or Japan?
You can hide to a certain extent. I don't think you can become immune. I think the way to invest in periods like this, I think, are to go with long-term themes. And a long-term theme that I think is one of the most bankable, and it might take, in 30 years, this will be a great success. And that is you should invest in India. Because India has a similar profile today to where China was 35 years ago, when they had tremendous population, labor force, visibility of labor force growth, tremendous problems, a gummed up legal system, corruption all over the place. But those are things that can be fixed. And you see, China went from 1/12 of the U.S. GDP to 70–80% of U.S. GDP, and they certainly produce more goods than the United States, so in a certain sense, they're bigger. Well, India has the same demographic outlook as China did then, and India has a benefit for the supply chain being moved around, for manufacturing can come there. They're very technology. They have a long history of being, a significant society. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but that's one that you buy and you just do yourself a favor and don't open the statement. Because if you do, when there's trouble, you're going to sell it, right? Because it'll be down 30%. So just hold it for your grandchildren's college.
That's shaking too much. Let me find
Double Line Group CEO and CIO Jeffrey Gunlock speaking to
shaking there? My God.
Abramovich at the Global Credit Forum in Los Angeles.
The hell, bro?
India is a good long-term bet for investors looking to de-dollarize. Well, joining us now, Gautami Gavankar, president at Kotak Mahindra Bank. Gautami, does it feel like India trumps China right now, especially when it comes to the wealthy individuals, when it comes to family offices? What's the trend?
Thank you, Ms. Linda, for having me on Bloomberg.
Very, very apt question. India is the fastest growing economy today, and we see a lot of traction in the UHNI, HNI space in India. We have seen the growth in this space in a tremendous way. We feel that because of the Indian demographics, because of the technology story, because of the consumer-led demand, because of the financialization, there is going to be a tremendous growth that we will see in India. And we see us tracking on the emerging markets also high up there. And thus we feel that India will do definitely way better, and we keep ourselves exceeding at all the actions that we take.
Is it also a case of India being seen as a safe haven given the US-China trade tensions? And what kind of exposure to India are investors looking at?
So if you consider the interest in India, as I indicated, that there's a lot of growth story in India. We see the family offices rising a lot in India. But when you come to non-resident Indians or foreigners or institutional investors looking at India, we see that also growing. I don't want to get into a comment on the political dimensions of India-US trade treaties. Having said that, the political parties and our government is doing all it can do to ensure that we get a benefit to the extent we deserve it. Having again said that, between the emerging markets, I think we really stand to gain a lot, and we see that happening all across in our markets, be it equity markets, be it debt markets, or be it the alternate space that India is really growing in.
But isn't it true that now investors are increasingly staying away from equity and debt market, looking more into the alternatives in India?
So I think the top of the pyramid report, which Kotak itself came out with, clearly said that equity is the king, and we still believe equity markets are where a lot of people have an interest in. Alternates do get a mixed space now because in equity markets do really well. The alternative investments also are looked at to see if we can get a higher return by investing into alternates. Alternates like real estate funds, private equity funds, private credit funds, special situations fund, all are something which a lot of clients are looking at investing in. We see a lot of globalization also happening. We see our clients investing and diversifying their portfolios into global investments as well.
The alternative market is interesting. People talk about how it will grow fivefold by 2034, set to be what, $2-3 trillion market. I'm just wondering, how do you play this market? How should you position? Is it in real estate, like you mentioned, or could there be other sectors to play in?
So definitely it has to be a mix of all the sectors that one looks at. One cannot only concentrate on real estate as a sector. So there are two ways to look at it. One is how the resident Indian is playing the market. They are definitely playing it by, if it's real estate play, then it's looking at REITs and InvITs. These are the structures which get created and people do invest in that. We see a lot of growth in private credit for the domestic markets as well. We see a lot happening in the life sciences fund. We ourselves have launched a life sciences fund for clients. But when you look at money coming into India from an offshore territory, we look at two options. One is an ability to invest into rupees, and the other is an ability to invest through dollars. So we are creating feeder structures through offshore locations, offshore territories to feed into the Indian feeder funds, so that even a foreign citizen, a non-resident Indian, a foreign institutional investor can play through the feeder structures.
You've got to wonder how attractive India can be to foreign investors. We spoke to Kasim Block earlier this year, and he talked about being concerned of the tax on capital gains. That makes India unattractive, he says. What's your take on that?
I think it's something which we need to look at from a government's perspective. We've seen a lot of tax reforms that we have had in India. We have seen this budget ensuring that there were tax cuts done for the affluent Indian, and from that perspective, there's a lot of savings which an Indian will do, and that will deploy into consumers and financial industry. And thus, it is not appropriate statement that the tax reforms are not done. Very clearly, the government has taken a lot of efforts to ensure that tax reforms have been done. There are tax treaties which have been, signed, whereby the agreements give us benefit when a foreigner or a non-resident Indian is investing into India. We don't have things like, some tax regimes like inheritance tax regime or gift tax regimes which are prevalent in other countries, and thus investing into financial markets makes it easier even for non-resident.
Okay, I'm sorry. Her accent is driving me nuts right now. 10 wins. Yeah, that's super heavy. My God.
Multiple arrests tonight at multiple locations in the city at immigration raid protests, and for the second day in a row, happening again. Loud voices at Foley Square, just feet from immigration court.
Immigrant families and allies taking over Foley Square, demanding that ICE backs down. Delia tells me she's ready to fight for her family and her patients that she serves in the hospital.
Yeah, I'm the voice for it, but I have family members I can't because they're scared. They can't draw any attention to themselves.
John Mertz drove here all the way from Pennsylvania, and he says he's not done yet.
I actually investigated plane tickets to Los Angeles.
So you're going from this protest in New York to LA?
I may. I checked the prices.
People here say they're taking a national stand against immigration raids and deportations happening right here in the city and across the country. Mary Lynn Buckley, 1010 wins on 92.3 FM in Foley Square.
The White House defending the president's decision to call in the Guard and Marines to quell immigration raid protesters in Los Angeles.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says it's quite simple.
President Trump will never allow mob rule to prevail in America.
That's why she said President Trump sent in the troops, even though California's governor and the mayor of Los Angeles said the president's actions made matters worse. Secretary Leavitt took the opposite view.
Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom fanned the flames and demonized our brave ICE officers.
And Leavitt added the president will not be deterred from taking further action to carry out mass deportations.
And that is from Linda Kenyon. A judge says the feds have to release Columbia University protester Mahmoud Khalil from detention, giving them room to appeal by Friday. The federal judge ruling he cannot be deported. He's the student the Trump administration jailed over taking part in pro-Palestinian demonstrations at the university. It was Houston 11:51. Time for traffic and transit with Kelly Dillon.
We are bumper to bumper on the westbound belt at a complete standstill in Brooklyn, heading into Flatbush Avenue, where there is an ongoing accident investigation. All lanes subject to closure. Traffic is at a standstill back to Rockaway Parkway, so do skip that section. Picking up on the Van Wyck and Queens both ways at Hillside Ave, 2 lanes of construction each way here tonight. Also really picking up on the northbound Deacon into Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx with overnight road work setting up, couple lanes out. So a standstill back to Fordham Road. Here's what you need to know about the bridges and tunnels. Outbound George upper level, 3 lanes are out tonight. About a half-hour wait. Lower deck, if you can use it, a bit better. Heading inbound, no construction, so that remains quiet. The Lincoln Tunnel, Center Tube is out overnight. Into Jersey, about a half-hour backup now in building. And inbound, it is okay. The outbound Holland, closed in Detour till 5 in the morning, and inbound, Elena construction work causing about a 10-minute backup. I'm feeling our next report at 12:01. 1010 wins on 92.3 FM.
Now the AccuWeather 4-day forecast with meteorologist Brian. Tom?
We do have a warm night ahead of us tonight, as it will be a mostly clear night. Low temperatures pretty close to 70 degrees. There is an air quality alert in effect from late tonight through tomorrow evening due to the potential for ground level ozone and also the potential for some wildfire smoke to at least somewhat impact air quality. So we will have hazy sunshine again for tomorrow. Very warm and a bit more humid with some clouds mixed in. 1 or 2 spots north and west of the city could see an afternoon or early evening thunderstorm, but most of the area will be dry. A high to 88 tomorrow. Clear to partly cloudy tomorrow night, low 68. Not quite as warm on Friday with a mix of clouds and sun. Maybe a spotty thunderstorm later on, a high of 82. Cooler Saturday with clouds and a couple of showers, high 74. I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Brian Thompson on New York's weather station. 1010 wins on 92.3 FM.
1877 cars for kids. KARS cars for kids.
protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
Life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Building Bridges, that which unites us. A thought-provoking new podcast hosted by Michael Hirschman, CEO of Solaviv Group.
I'm Michael Hirschman. Join me as I tackle vital national topics that affect the man on the street to the executive suite with unscripted, authentic perspectives that spark in-depth discussions with experts in the field.
Go to buildingbridges.nyc to watch episodes or download wherever you get your podcasts. Nielsen rated #1.
7 times in the morning.
Nobody can do it better.
Cousin Bruce, everybody.
I love the music. Music radio. Nobody can do it. Hello.
Here's a harsh fact. 40% of women and almost 20% of men suffer from varicose or spider veins. And if you think this is just a cosmetic problem, think again. Varicose or spider veins, if left untreated, can lead to swollen or discolored legs, cramping, the inability to stand or walk, neuropathy, even worse, blood clots, which can travel to other parts of your body. But here's the good news. Advanced Medical Vein Treatment Centers offers plans that treat and cure the condition, not just cover up. Grab your phone, take down this number, and call 800-597-7992. That's 800-597-7992. When you call, you'll get free information. Free information on how you can live your life to the fullest again. Walk, exercise, sleep well. Your vein problems will not go away on their own, and in time can lead to major health issues. Call Advanced Medical Vein today for free information on fast and easy solutions that are covered by most insurance plans, Medicare included. Call 800-597-7992. That's 800-597-7992 today. Tomorrow morning at 8:15, Sid Rosenberg talks with NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch about crime, ICE agents, and quality of life in New York City. No topic is off limits. Sid Rosenberg, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, tomorrow morning at 8:15 on Sid and Friends in the Morning, 77 WABC. 77 WABC. It's the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
Well, it doesn't look like it's a beautiful day in Spokane, Washington. This is wild. There are reports that a former city council president there was just taken away in handcuffs because he called for a massive protest when he said that ICE was going to deport a man who's originally from Venezuela, who was here in the country illegally. And apparently they were going to move that individual. And he then called for the protests. It'll be interesting. Was he inciting? I'm not sure what the charges are, but they clearly think that he played a role because there are a number of individuals that are blocking the streets there in Spokane, Washington, and they're shouting some pretty vile things, calling officers there Nazis and things like that. Similar rhetoric to what we're seeing in other parts of the country, but shouting at ICE. And right near an ICE detention center. Also, the mayor there has now called for a curfew, which would make it the second city after Los Angeles where there is a curfew there in effect for the second night in a row in downtown Los Angeles. Boy, oh boy, things are getting quite heated, no doubt. President Trump monitoring all of this and Homeland Security as well. Let's go to Eduardo in Tampa. Eduardo, your thoughts?
Yeah, Rito, wait till you get to Saturday, but I'm afraid that this is going to escalate even more. Reggie's right on about the education. This is, Karen Bass in the 70s was in Cuba being indoctrinated. So it's terrible. 400 games in LA, 22 rebuilding permits from the fires. They're going to host the World Cup and the Olympics in the next 3 or 4 years.
You're right. They've got to clean up and they got to keep people safe. You're right.
They're like on that shit.
This is New York's talk leader, the crown jewel of talk radio.
World Cup in the Olympics? Yeah, they're like on that shit.
WRCR Haverstraw and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays. News first at 59 past the hour. 77 WABC.
That should be a real doozy.
Starts now.
Clear skies on this Thursday, June 12th. Good morning, I'm Lisa Ritchie. Federal charges are being filed against 2 Los Angeles demonstrators accused of hurling Molotov cocktails at police. U.S. Attorney Bill Eseli.
You have the right to peacefully protest. No one's going to stop you. But as soon as you cross that line into violence, you're throwing stuff, you're throwing rocks, you're throwing bombs. That's unacceptable.
The suspects are being charged with possession of an unregistered explosive device and other crimes. New York City police continue to make arrests in connection with ICE-related daily protests. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch says close to 100 people were handcuffed on Tuesday.
We will not tolerate people blocking streets, people blocking entrances to buildings, people blocking cars, chaos, violence, or disorder, and we will stamp that out when it appears.
Tisch says about 2,500 people were protesting in Lower Manhattan Tuesday. The news was not all good for the 2 candidates who won their primary for governor in New Jersey last night. Noam Layton explains.
Jack Ciattarelli had no problem winning the Republican primary Tuesday night.
I accepted your nomination as the Republican candidate for governor of New Jersey. Tonight, because of you, we won all 21 New Jersey counties.
And Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill says she can't wait to face off against Ciattarelli in November.
New Jersey. Are you ready?
But there are some worries in the numbers for both candidates. The majority of New Jersey Democrats voted for someone other than Sherrill on Tuesday. Ciattarelli only received about 40,000 more votes Tuesday than Sherrill did. Noam Layton, WABC News.
The suspects accused of torturing an Italian man in a New York City apartment are pleading not guilty. James Flippin reports.
John Waltz, the so-called crypto king of Kentucky, and his associate William Plessy of Miami were arraigned on charges of kidnapping, assault, unlawful imprisonment, and criminal possession of a weapon. They're accused of luring a man from Italy to their Soho apartment early in May and then torturing him for 3 weeks to try to get his crypto account password. After being shocked with electrical wires and dangled over a staircase, the victim managed to free himself and find help on the street. Waltz and Duplessis ordered to remain in custody until their next court appearance, July 15th. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
There's no more broker fees for tenants looking for apartments in New York City. Several property groups claim this will hurt the rental industry and force rents to rise, but Aliyah Mohammed with Opening Lou, a review platform for tenants, says that's okay.
Even if we see rents go up, let's say $20 or $25, that's still going to be better for renters than having to pay $10,000 up front to move apartments.
The new law went into effect on Wednesday. It prohibits agents for property owners from charging prospective renters a broker fee, and that any such fee would be paid for by the landlords or the property manager. Summer weather has finally arrived, so it's a great time to think about swimming safety. Lisa G has more.
According to the CDC, drowning is the leading cause of death with kids aged 1 to 4 years old. And because of that, many parents on Long Island are putting their kids in swimming lessons at younger ages, as they explained to News 12 Long Island.
Accidents happen all the time, and it takes a second for one of these things to happen.
Rebecca Weiner of Aquafin's Infant Aquatics says it's not too early to start getting kids in the water.
There is no such thing as they're too young to start.
She says some of her students are just 6 months old. Lisa G, 77 WABC News.
Hall of Fame rock group Heart has one of its 2 stolen musical instruments back. Tammy Trujillo has more. Atlantic City, New Jersey police say a suspect, Garfield Bennett, is under arrest for the theft. The 57-year-old is accused of stealing a custom-made purple Telecaster and a vintage 1966 Gibson mandolin. They were stolen from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino's Etes Arena last Saturday when the band played a show there. Police used license plate readers to identify the car of the woman who bought the Telecaster and quickly located it. The woman voluntarily returned the guitar, but the mandolin, which band member Paul Moak has played for more than 25 years, is still missing. I'm Tammy Trujillo. In sports, the driver accused in the deadly New Jersey crash that killed NHL star Johnny Gaudreau and his brother is trying to get roadside statements thrown out of the case. Sean Higgins was in court on Tuesday. His attorneys are asking that statements he made at the scene of the crash in August of last year not be used as part of evidence. Your forecast for overnight tonight, clear skies, the low 69 degrees. Later on today, some hazy sunshine, breezy and warmer with a high of 89. Friday shapes up to be partly sunny with a chance of a late day thunderstorm and the high about 80. It is mostly clear outside of our Midtown studios right now. And don't forget, later on this morning, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch will be joining Sid Rosenberg on Sid and Friends in the Morning at 8:15. That's right. New York City's top cop, Jessica Tisch, on with Sid at 8:15 this morning. On Wall Street, the Dow fell by a point to 42,865 on Wednesday. The S&P 500 lost 16. The Nasdaq dropped by 99. I'm Lisa Ritchie. Remember, the news never stops at WABCRadio.com.
Every weekend, newsmakers are on 77 WABC.
The Cats Roundtable, Governor Patrick Morris on West Virginia's contribution to America.
We're ready to make sure that America has energy independence.
Roger Stone on the LA riots.
You would not be mobilizing against the country's citizens. You would mobilize them against people who are in the country illegally.
Anthony Cumia on the LA rioters.
Keep them in line. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. They're not protesters.
Senator Tommy Tuberville on Trump's big, beautiful bill.
There's a lot of things that I don't like in the bill. Everybody's got to understand that the number one thing is the tax cuts.
With Frank Rena of the Capris.
I went to the dance and I went to the men's room and there was 4 guys singing. And I joined in with you guys. Yeah, come on. I sang for them and it's just, you're in the group.
Listen to these mini-casts and more. Download the 77 WABC mini-casts. Everything you need to know in 10 minutes or less. Now, from New York City to the world, it's Dominic Carter.
And a number of stories we are following this hour. President Trump and First Lady Melania at the Kennedy Center receiving a standing ovation tonight. Walmart facing backlash and calls for a boycott from Trump supporters after the company's heiress, Christy Walton, purchased a full-page ad in the New York Times promoting an anti-Trump event this weekend. A number of the people arrested in Los Angeles will be deported. That is wonderful, wonderful news. This as it's the second night of the curfew in LA. New York City Mayor Eric Adams defending ICE. You'll hear that in just a couple of minutes. And in the race to replace Adams in terms of whether Adams will be staying on or leaving in the Democratic primary, which is just now about 2.5 weeks away. We have a situation where the second place finisher, based on polling, Mandami, who's the socialist, he's surged and he's now in first place for the first time, leading Cuomo. It's still a statistical dead heat, but he has surged ahead, leading Cuomo. Dominic Carter here with you. The number to reach me this hour, 800-848-9222. The Kennedy Center, right? So Yesterday it was Fort Bragg in North Carolina, where the president received a warm welcome. I want you to listen to this. This is the Kennedy Center. Now, the play that was on tonight, a couple of the lead actors in protest against Trump did not show up tonight, did not perform, but the president and the first lady receiving a standing ovation and chants of USA. Listen to this. And so was the scene at the Kennedy Center, the president and the first lady in the president's box on the first level, like a balcony level. And it was lights full up once the first lady and the president walked in, and that was the reaction, the positive response that they received. We're going to get to the situation in Iran in just 1 second, in which President Trump apparently, or the administration, is pulling out U.S. personnel out of the region. And we'll deal with that in just a second, but let's focus on Walmart for a second. Walmart facing backlash and calls for a boycott from Trump supporters after Christy Walton purchased a full-page ad in the New York Times promoting an anti-Trump event this weekend. And the number to reach us, by the way, folks, let's go ahead and open up the phone lines, 800-848-9222. Again, Walmart under fire.
Walmart is facing calls for a boycott after heiress Christy Walton backed an anti-Trump ad in the New York Times. The full-page ad promoted a No Kings event that coordinated hundreds of protests across the U.S. The ad critiqued Trump's foreign policy and America's first agenda without explicitly naming him. Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna accused the ad of funding a counter-protest scheduled for Trump's birthday. Walton previously co-hosted a fundraiser supporting Kamala Harris. Walmart imports about 40% of its merchandise and has warned that tariffs will raise consumer costs.
Walmart looking at a tough situation in terms of the heiress, Christy Walton, who's married to the son, of the owner.
Wow.
Now, walking into the Kennedy Center, and we'll be starting with your telephone calls in just a minute, the president declaring that the United States of America will not allow Iran to have nuclear weapons in response to reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region.
Can you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that could be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
President Trump at the Kennedy Center, also talking in general to the media as he arrived.
Administration, the golden era of things. We are in a golden era here in the country. You see the trade numbers came in today, they're fantastic. The deficit was cut in half over a period of 2 months. We got what they tried to destroy our country. They were destroying our country. And you saw how good the numbers were. We took in $88 billion in tariffs in 2.5 months. And then we didn't even start yet. No, we're bringing the country back fast. And I'm very proud to have helped Los Angeles survive. Los Angeles right now, if we didn't do what we did, would be burning to the ground. And that's not over yet. You know, these are radical left lunatics lunatics that you're dealing with. And they're tough, they're smart, they're probably paid, many of them, as you know, they're professionals. When you see them chopping up concrete because the priest got captured, they're chopping up concrete and they're using that as a weapon. That's pretty bad. Thank you very much for your question. You're a New Yorker, a brilliant leader. Do you remember your first introduction to music? Well, a long time ago, I would say maybe it was Cats. Cats. First lady, do you remember your first theater production song?
Phantom of the Opera. Are you related to Mrs. Trump? I am.
We were eating a lot of popcorn and Diet Coke tonight while we watched the play, so I think Thank you very much.
The president at the Kennedy Center just a few hours ago. And we are about to start taking your telephone calls, 800-848-9222. And I can update the performance at the Kennedy Center, where the president was also booed at the Kennedy Center. But remember, he took over and got rid of the entire board. But so it was a mixed reaction, but it started out positive from what we can see. And we're just receiving information now as well that the president that was booed. 800-848-9222. Let's begin with your telephone calls. Maria, line 1 in Brooklyn. Good morning, Maria. What's on your mind?
Dominic, the president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, literally had the audacity to say that the United States is the United States today because of Mexicans' hands that have come to work in this country. I remember immigration used to be way back then. I'm talking about when my family first came, late 60s, early 70s. If you were an undocumented person, you were very, very quiet. You were not in people's face. Immigration customs, yes. And they had every right to go into factories, into work areas, and nobody said anything. How did we get to this point where they are basically trying to rule, the mob rules? This is all Joe Biden's fault and Kamala Harris. Correct. And the Democratic Party, who is nothing but a supporter of anarchists. This is them trying to destabilize this country. If it's so good in all these countries that their flags, why don't they go back to it? I mean, I'm from Latin America. And I have respect for this country. I will die for the flag of this country. To spit on it, and yet you reaping up the benefits of this country. I called the Hispanic radio newscast, and I said, you should all be ashamed of yourself. You are you're benefiting from all the greatness of this country, and you're spitting on it. Go back to where you came from. I'm going to tell you one secret. This whole thing about these flags, there's 4 or 5 countries that basically rule in the United States, because they don't give the smaller Latin American countries a chance on anything, not on the media, not on any finances. So whatever they're accusing the Americans of racism, they do it to their own countries, their own Latin American co-country. It's awful. It's awful what's happening, and I'm glad that Trump and the president are putting troops, whatever we have to do to keep the peace and law and order in this country. Thanks, Dominic.
And thank you, Maria. And you're correct. There was a time when people coming to the country would be in the foreground. They would be in the, I'm not going to say the back, but they wouldn't be ruffling feathers. It's a new day, and the reason why it's a new day is the weakness from the Biden administration. Period. There's no other way, as Maria just alluded to, there's no other way to say it. But the good news is that it's a new day in America. 800-848-9222. Mayor Adams, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, appearing on CNN discussing ICE, in which the mayor offered somewhat of a defense of ICE, as he should. Because let's not lose the point of the matter that ICE is a federal law enforcement agency. Period. Full stop. Imagine waking up to that in the morning. New York City, Eric Adams on CNN.
Imagine waking up to that in the morning. I want to ask you about the city council
pushing for an investigation into whether the NYPD has shared sealed records with ICE, what could be a violation of local law. Can you confirm whether the NYPD or any other local agency is collaborating with federal immigration enforcement?
We made it clear over and over again that we will not collaborate with any agencies when it comes to civil enforcement. The law does not allow us to do that. But we will collaborate when it comes down to criminal enforcement. It's unfortunate that the city council chooses to use that power to find out if there's any collaboration instead of really advocating for going after those who commit serious crimes, acts of violence, not only on New Yorkers, but also on migrants and asylum seekers, forcing women into prostitution, selling drugs, shooting at police officers, assaulting individuals. Our focus should be on protecting innocent New Yorkers. We're not collaborating with anyone when it comes down to civil enforcement. But I said this before and I'll say it again. ICE is not a criminal organization. It's a federal law enforcement organization like our other federal partners, and we will use them to protect innocent people in this city.
And we see your telephone calls, 800-848-9222. We're going to go to Joan in Manhattan, Aaron in New Jersey among the calls. But first, we're going to take this break. And we are coming right back. Stay with us.
It's Dominic Carter.
1877 Cars for Kids. K-A-R-S Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate today at carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K. Your car can be picked up as soon as the next day. Receive a tax deduction and vacation voucher.
1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Building Bridges, That Which Unites Us, a thought-provoking new podcast hosted by Michael Hirschman, CEO of Solaviv Group.
I'm Michael Hirschman. Join me as I tackle vital national topics that affect the man on the street to the executive suite with unscripted, authentic perspectives that spark in-depth discussions with experts in the field.
Go to buildingbridges.nyc to watch episodes or download wherever you get your podcasts.
Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/stone or call 800-747-6589 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold, and it's 100% tax-free.
Life insurers put life into the things you live for. The new factory that's hiring your neighbors. Maintenance on the bridge that keeps traffic flowing. The paycheck that puts pizza night on the table. Life insurers contribute $8 trillion to communities and local economies through bond purchases and other investments, and protect the financial security of 90 million American families, like yours. See how life insurers put life into America at acli.com. Paid for by the American Council of Life Insurers.
This is the Dominic Carter Show, 77 WABC. Let's push back on the tired narrative from these unhinged anti-ICE protesters. This woman came to America the right way, legally, and now she's calling out illegal immigrants, and she's not holding back.
It's really not that hard to be a legal immigrant. Get your paperwork, earn your citizenship, stop feeling entitled. I have seen gangs take over the roads in my old country in Pakistan, and what I saw in LA, those videos are much more scary and disturbing. This is bad. These are criminal gangs. They're waving the Mexican flag because they think they have a right to. They want to take back this land.
That's right,
they want to take it, and they don't think they need paperwork. They don't want a lawful system where you need paperwork. Well, guess what? Half the immigrants voted against the Democrats. We don't want to move to a country run by Mexicans. We moved to the United States of America, okay? We don't want to move to a country where the mayor has gone to Africa at the time when her city is burning, and then she fires the fire chief for speaking out and saying, we've been asking for help for 3 years and she didn't get it. Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are a major disappointment. As for all of those idiots saying, oh, this is like you supporting this is you being Nazi Germany. No, you thinking that these illegal criminals with bricks throwing weapons at police officers, these people who want to do the wrong thing, and you think you're nice because you're supporting someone who's doing illegal things, you're supporting the erasure of law and order, of documentation, you're a moron. And you're really cruel to compare these illegal criminals to Jews and what happened to them in Nazi Germany. The entire concept is backward. It's all going to break down. This is reverse colonization gone off the handle. This is anti-racist racism against white people. And this is erasure of legal immigration. The Democrats are just, I can't even listen to them anymore because they have removed the word illegal. They keep saying immigrant, immigrant. How stupid does anyone have to be to fall for them? Shame on them. Shame on the New York Times. Shame on all of these people covering. Shame on NPR for lying. NPR, we're watching you. You're lying out of your ass. Maybe NPR needs a TikTok account so they can actually watch what's actually happening.
Bravo, ma'am. Bravo.
Wow.
This is the Dominic Carter Show,
Like
77
that.
WABC.
Nice one. Dumbasses.
Now, from New York City to the world, it's Dominic Carter.
And back to the phones we go. 800-848-9222. Line 4.
Granger.
Newark, New Jersey. Good morning, Deidre.
Thank you, Granger.
Good morning. Love your show, Dominic. Love you.
Oh, thank you. We're going right back out at you and to you. Thank you.
Okay, so I get it. We want the criminals out of here. And yes, their mistakes might be made when they're going out and they're getting deported. But my big question is, what happens to sponsorship? Let's bring it back. The 50-year crush. Okay? So it's like, why the sponsorship could be okay if they want to stay here legally, and then we sponsor them.
So give me an idea, Deirdre. We know how it used to work in the past. How would it work in 2025? You're talking about people that are already here.
Yeah.
Okay, now why would people sponsor them? Why would Americans step up to sponsor them?
Why would you want to sponsor?
Okay, because maybe
someone that doesn't want to work.
Befriend somebody. It could be, you know what, I'm trying to get, like, you know, like relationships happen or this happens, and you don't want to do it illegally or whatever, like, you know, oh, yeah, married, but that's not going to fly here anymore, because that's what they did in the past. You marry, you stay sold, and they got paid. They got paid to be married. Listen, I was offered $50,000 to marry a Russian guy. Okay, but I said, oh no, and I didn't take it. But so sponsorship was many years ago, and if you like knew a family and they came over, but it was like send them over and I sponsored. Okay, I sponsored my grandfather, had to sponsor my grandmother and waited for her for 8 years. But it's no longer that way anymore. They're already here. So
right.
Well, if you knew a family.
Right. Let me just say this. See, the problem is, I like your idea. I don't see anything wrong with returning to it. But when you have pandering Democrats that tell you can come here and get everything for free, why would they be willing to do it?
Exactly. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Michael Anthony, ALR, in the last 2 weeks has a partnership to have 27 million in cash with no debt. The company has 2 upgrades to buy with a price target of $8 after close. Changes to the board to get great man. Okay, and there's I guess there's a continue here. Let's see what it is. Ooh. Yeah, so all right. There you go.
For any of us. Deirdre, thank you so much for the wonderful call and for the good idea. Not a bad one.
It's not a good idea.
Let's go to Aaron, line 3 in New Jersey. Aaron, good morning. What's on your mind?
Hi, Dominic. I just wanted to let you know that I think there's a bigger issue out there that we're not addressing, and there's not enough media coverage about, and that is what's going on with Iran. I think people are not discussing it enough. I think an attack is imminent on Iran's nuclear facilities.
From who?
From Israel and possibly the U.S. also, and that would possibly a lot of different things will change in the world once an attack happens like that.
For good or for bad, in your opinion?
I think in the long term for good, in the short term it might look ugly.
Yeah, well, with the U.S. pulling out personnel, it looks like, Aaron, you're correct that something may be coming in the days ahead. Time for a break. We're coming right back.
Donate now to toysfortots.org. Working year-round, delivering hope to children at Christmas time and beyond. In 2024, Toys for Tots provided over 30 million toys to nearly 13 million children in need. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org. Since 1947, Toys for Tots has distributed 708 million toys to 314 million deserving children. Working year-round. Toys for Tots. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org.
Sid Rosenberg here with big news. I'm going to Cyprus, beautiful Cyprus, on June 22nd with my beautiful wife Danielle to celebrate our 33rd wedding anniversary. We're going to the Cap St. George's Hotel and Resort, beachside luxury, incredible restaurants, a world-class spa, even a nightclub, plus private fishing trips and private yacht excursions. Visit Cap St. George's Hotel and Resort. Dreams meet reality. Visit capstgeorges.com.
This is the Dominic Carter Show, 77 WABC. Wasteful spending under Biden. Listen to Congressman Brian Mast of Florida's 21st Congressional District.
Now is our chance to end the abuse once and for all. So here are just a few examples of some of the outrageous Biden-era programs that this bill stops in its tracks. You're not going to believe it. $9.3 million to teach Russian doctors how to perform abortions and gender analysis, whatever that might be. $45 million in the International Planned Parenthood Federation to bankroll abortion activism in Swaziland, give free health care to the people in Houthi-controlled Yemen, and study the impact on Malawi's economy of shop owners soliciting prostitution. Now, you might remember also, back in the day, the Biden administration, they tried to reclassify the people of Yemen in order to say that they weren't a foreign terrorist organization, so that they give them exactly that kind of aid. That's the kind of aid that they wanted to give them, and that's why they reclassified their foreign terrorist organizations. We also did $3.5 million for the World Health Organization to address harmful gender norms in Ghana and Nepal. $3 million for circumcision, vasectomies, and condoms in Zambia. $35 million to address vasectomy messaging frameworks and gender dynamics in Ethiopia. $833,000 to support transgender sex workers in Nepal. Are we serious here? And if you're wondering why I said sex workers, it's because that's the way that they actually wrote it.
Why is my taxpayer money going to do all
when they
this
were
shit?
doing these programs. $500,000 for
Lesbian Justice Foundation in Canada.
It's like bizarro
$1 million
world.
for voter ID in Haiti. $567,000 for LGBTQI plus programs in Uganda. $8,000 for promoting vegan food in Zambia. $2.5 million to teach young children how to make environmentally friendly reproductive health decisions. $6 million to subsidize media outlets in Judean Gaza Strip. None of these programs save lives or promote our interests abroad. Wow.
You can't make that shit up.
Congressman Brian Mast. This is the Dominic Carter Show, 77 WABC.
Listen to Dominic Carter every weekday at 3:55 p.m. for the Tunnel of Towers Foundation. Dominic's Final Thoughts.
Seriously, you can't make this shit
Dominic gives his insightful, most candid, and important final thought of the day on topics affecting our community, our nation, and you. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Dominic's Final Thoughts. Weekdays at 3:55 p.m. on 77 WABC. Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. One Tough Cop with Bo Deal.
He's the commissioner of the Nassau County Police Department. I'm really honored to have you on board, Patrick. Welcome to the show. So how did you guys cooperate together to blend in the intelligence? Because they want to get rid of the gang intelligence databases.
So we had great communication. We learned something from 9/11. As you know, communications is the key to our success. Information has to flow freely. It has to be shared. But we're not taking information or databases of the common citizen. These are criminals. They're registered in databases because they're a blood gang member, MS-13, TDA. Whatever that gang association is, we should know that. Because when my cops encounter them, you, the citizen, want to know that if I'm locking him up for shoplifting and he's also on top of it wanted by ICE or he's a gang member of MS-13, we want to make sure the judge knows that when they're making the decisions on it.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. Now, from New York City to the world, it's Dominic Carter.
And we are back. The race for mayor of New York City is tightening with about 2 weeks to go. Mandami, the socialist, I cannot believe I'm saying this, the socialist is surging. Technically, he's in first place right now, leading Cuomo for the first time, Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, for the first time in the mayor's race. So Cuomo has topped every voter survey since entering the race. But the Democratic Socialist is gaining ground, and he's been rising, and he's ahead of Cuomo with just 2 weeks until the Democratic primary. This is a poll that was reviewed in full by Politico, and it's conducted by the Public Policy Polling for Democrat Justin Brennan's city controller campaign, and it finds Mandami beating Cuomo 35% to 31%, a difference that is narrowly within the 4.1% margin of error. We all know Cuomo has been the constant front runner since his March 1st entrance into the race to oust Mayor Eric Adams. Adams, of course, is not running as a Democrat, but as an independent in the general election, so he won't be on the ballot. That is the current mayor in 2 weeks. They will square off the Democratic nominee against Curtis Sliwa, Mayor Adams, and whoever else has a line going into the fall election. 800-848-9222. Let's go to Denise, line one, Fort Lee, New Jersey. Good morning, Denise. What's on your mind?
Well, you guys were talking about, immigration and what have you. My grandfather, in 1900, needed a sponsor in order to come to this country from Italy. And he was given a location in Chelsea, New York, and he was given an ice route because my grandfather's family were icemen. And so, the woman who called before and said, giving somebody a sponsor, it doesn't make sense to do it after the fact. It has to be done prior to somebody coming to this country, and that's not going to happen because there's too many of them. There's too many people who are in here illegally. How would we find them? It's crazy.
It is a lot. It's a lot. But Denise, answer this for me. Considering what you just said about your grandfather, so what's the answer, in your opinion, for how to handle this problem?
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm not very politically, tuned in. I listen to your show and Rich Valdez and a few other people to get some information about politics. But I think one possible solution is to stem the flow now. I mean, I don't think sponsorship would work. It's too far gone at this point. That's a question I wish I could answer. I just can't.
Right, right. Well, even our elected officials, they can't agree on how to solve it. So I just wanted your perspective because we all have opinions, and I'm glad, Denise, that you are paying attention to the political process, no matter what show that you're listening to. But thank you for being a listener in part to this show. Thank you for the wonderful call. Let's see here. Let's go to line 5. Pamela in New Jersey. Pamela, what's on your mind?
Good morning. Yes, I agree. We are beyond sponsorship. This is a revolution. This is a takeover. Even Sheinbaum of Mexico said that she's going to take over California and take it back. And she's got people, candidates all over Mexico being shot. The opposing candidate in Colombia was shot. This is a revolution, and everybody's getting in on it. They're pretending they're immigrants. No, these aren't immigrants. These are infiltrators. This is an invasion. And it's happening globally.
Right, but okay, so I'll ask the same question of you, Pamela. I get it. It's happening globally. We see the stories from around the world. But how do we deal with the issue here in the U.S.?
Well, just like spring cleaning, we got to clean house first. We got to do what they're doing, with the National Guard and everything, and calm all this down. And even the mayors now are trying to, the Democratic mayors are realizing they better, make it look a little good by pulling in the National Guard. It's like putting a Band-Aid on. But these people are blocking highways. That means people can't get to doctors, can't get to work, could die in heat waves on highways.
Sure can.
This
sure
is
can.
serious.
Sure can.
And we have to handle this in a serious manner. Otherwise, and if they, in New York City, if they vote for what I think they're going to vote for, all those people who vote for him thinking, oh yeah, I'll give it to America by voting for this guy. Well, you know what? Nobody's going to New York City anymore. I don't believe that the plays are doing as well as they do. It must be the elite with security guards, because everybody I know does not go to New York City.
Well, let's be clear about this. No one wants to ride the subway to get to Broadway. Now, maybe you're taking an Uber. Maybe you have a chauffeur-driven vehicle. But things are rough, not just for New York, but for cities all over the country. Look at Los Angeles right now. Who would want to go there, Pamela? Would you?
It was always my dream to go there. My sister went there and looked, at the studios and everything, and I liked old Hollywood, and to take a tour of the old Hollywood section. But now, forget it. I mean, California is burnt to the ground, and riots, and it's a mess. It's dangerous. They took that beautiful state and they destroyed it. The most beautiful land in probably just about in the world.
Cesspool.
And it's been
a cesspool. Say it's a cesspool.
Elite.
I know. I lived out there for a couple of months.
Took it over and destroyed it.
You're gonna pay me to live out there now.
Brian Wilson died today, and it made me think of that old California style, and it's almost appropriate that
disgusting
with his death is the death of California also.
Yep. Well, Beach Boys co-founder, dead, Brian Wilson, as you just mentioned, dead at the age of 82. And to your point, Pamela, and thank you for the great call. To Pamela's point, notice you have Pretty Boy Newsom, a Democrat, as governor, and you have completely incompetent mayor Karen Bass. Oh, we want a black woman as mayor. We want a black woman. Okay, fine, wonderful. You should have the qualifications. You really should. 800-848-9222. Robert in Philadelphia, line one. Robert, what's on your mind?
Hi, Dominic. As always, it's good to talk to you. I just heard the question you asked about, what is the solution? And I think the simple solution is deport as many as you can, knowing that you're not going to get them all. That's fine. But deport as many as you can and change the census laws so that the blue states and blue cities do not benefit by keeping their illegal immigrants. In a nutshell, I think that's the quickest and most effective way to deal with the problem, being realistic.
Okay, but Robert, I want you to answer this for me. So, because this is the part I'm not getting. How would the blue states benefit from their illegals? Are you talking about the census?
Yes.
They're not voting. So
no,
yeah.
but they are counted towards apportionment, which means how many representatives you get, and they are counted towards federal funding, which determines how much money these states and cities would get. And if you change the laws today, you can only use people who came in illegally. That would remove the incentive that these blue states and cities have to fight for these illegal immigrants. But that's just my opinion.
And your opinion is always pretty accurate, Robert. It would just be nice if these elected officials that are fighting so hard for immigrants and migrants, have you ever seen them fight that hard for us? I haven't.
No, Dominic, I got to tell you, man, and I know that you know what I'm talking about. I've never seen a lot of things that I've seen over the past 6 or 7 years that I'm seeing now. I'm blown away every day by the lengths that they're going to. And I say, in the end, now you were right last time I spoke to you and said it might not affect the politics of LA and New York, but I think as far as the country goes and the visual optics, I think that's going to nudge a few more people into the Republican camp. If we can do well in the 2026 midterm,
I agree with you.
Then we can pass these census laws.
Because right now, the Democrats, the average American that's out there struggling, getting up, going to work every day, taking care of their family, taking care of their kids, mothers taking care of their children, fathers trying to hold down the family. You look at what's going on in LA, you look at the migrant issue in New York, Chicago, Boston, Denver, Colorado. And Robert, we can go on and on and on. And it's like the only place we see where it's quickly dealt with and gotten rid of is in Martha's Vineyard. I wonder why.
Yeah, right. Well played, Dominic. Well played. Have a great night.
Thank you for the great call here. Let's see. Let's go to Scott, line 4, Queens. Scott, what's on your mind?
Dominic, quick question. I know everybody tries to belittle or put down Biden, which is great because he did suck. But why isn't Kamala Harris involved? Everyone wants to say Biden's name, not Harris. Harris is also as bad as Biden. No one wants to say that. They just want to throw one name out there.
Hell, man.
I guess because the entire country knows how incompetent she is. Notice past tense and present tense. And number twos historically don't have much of a role in terms of the policy of an administration. So that's why I think people mentioned Biden's name. It was Biden on that debate stage that sent the full green light before he was even elected, that come on to America, you're welcome, I've got your back. Now, yes, Kamala Harris was his teammate, his partner, but she wasn't at the top of the ticket. You have the final word, Scott. Go ahead.
You still should throw her in the mix because she's running for governor of California. It's going to be 10 times worse. So why would you not keep her underneath the microscope?
But she's not officially running yet.
Well, still, because she's hiding right now. But you should keep on mentioning her name on everything Biden did. It should be Biden-Harris.
Okay, so should we do that? Should we do that for every president? I mean, come on now. They're not the top of the ticket.
It seems like every show I'm listening to and do, it seems it's Biden. No, where the hell is Harris?
I just told you why. I just told you, Scott, because she's not the top of the ticket. When do you ever hear a vice president outside of Cheney mentioned as much as the president? You don't. But thank you so much for the call, Scott. Let's go to Santiago, line 5, the Bronx, New York. Santiago, hey, man.
Hey, Dominic, it's more of a comment. I can't believe that this guy, Gavin Newsom, could actually treat Trump this way, knowing that Trump went out of his way, went over to California to discuss the wildfires that was happening out there, and he came hard in his hand to help Gavin Newsom, and this is how Gavin Newsom repays him, by striking out against him and making, like, trying to belittle him and be a big tough guy. He's not even over the catastrophe that happened with those wildfires between him and Karen Bass. I mean, like, it's like one disaster after another in California, and he wants to get mad at Trump. You know, that's ridiculous. And I also want to mention that Maria, the first caller, she's spot on, man. What a great intellect she has. But and she's very passionate. She's very passionate in her beliefs. Santiago, thank you for the call. I'll just say this: I almost rolled over in shock. I received this evening a fundraising letter from Gavin Newsom, right, out in California. He's raising money off of the rioting that's going on in his state. In his state, Gavin Newsom, the pretty boy, and incompetent mayor Karen Bass. 800-848-9222. We are coming right back.
It's Dominic Carter.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war in the term life industry. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man aged 45, non-smoker, can get $1 million of coverage for $75 per month. Level rate for 10 years. Or a man aged 50, non-smoker, can obtain $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of $110. Level rate for 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rate for 20 years. If you're a smoker, we have great rates available for you as well. At Termbusters, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. If you're looking for a new or replacement term life insurance, call today for a quote. 800-786-9161. You're probably paying more than you should. Call 1-800-786-9161. Remember, 1-800-786-9161. Sample rate quotes based on preferred non-smoker rate class. Exam required to qualify.
Allie Dwyer and her 3 sons lost their hero, Stephen. Serving our country in the United States Army was Stephen's calling, and flying helicopters was his passion. Stephen died in a Black Hawk helicopter crash over the Mediterranean Sea. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, and the Air Medal with Combat Device, among many others for his service. Allie says Stephen will always be the love of her life and her boy's real-life superhero, who they are proud to call their daddy. Thanks to friends like you, Tunnel to Towers helped this family with a mortgage-free home, giving them security and hope in their darkest hours. Tunnel to Towers provides mortgage-free homes for families of our country's fallen heroes, and builds specially adapted smart homes for catastrophically injured heroes. The foundation is also committed to eradicating homelessness among our veterans and helping our nation keep its vow to never forget 9/11. Help more families like the Dwyers.
Find another feed, see what's going on.
Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
This is the Dominic Carter Show, 77 WABC. A married high school counselor was sentenced to prison for having sex with one of her students in Ohio. 43-year-old mom Emily Nutley addressed the court. This from Ohio TV station WLWT.
I crossed a boundary that never should have been crossed, and I violated the trust of someone who needed to be protected and respected. I lived every day with the heavy burden of knowing that I caused that harm. The teen eventually told his parents. Police were notified Nutley was arrested. She lost her job, license, and marriage. But the victim's family said today their son's junior and senior years of high school were ruined. His confidence was destroyed, as was his desire to play sports in college.
In this situation, I believe that the proper sentence is 3 years in prison on count 1, 3 years on count 5 to be served at the same time.
Emily Nutley seemed a bit surprised by that sentence. She was immediately placed in handcuffs and escorted out of the courtroom. In April, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual battery. She admitted while she was the director of academic services at St. X High School, she had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old student. Prosecutors say she was the aggressor all along, sent him nude photos, paid for his pickleball membership, gave him her Netflix password, and $100 a month allowance.
Prosecutors say the student had come to Nutley for, quote, help and guidance, and instead received her, quote, perverted sexual desires instead. This is the Dominic Carter Show, 77 WABC.
The views and opinions expressed by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the policies or positions of WABC Radio, its management, or its sponsors.
Now, from New York City to the world, it's Dominic Carter.
And we are back. So violence in LA, what violence? Literally, that's what some of these stations are telling you. I want you to listen to this. This is CNN. Her name is Ashley Allison. And she's assuring viewers that there are no riots in Los Angeles because she literally was just there.
I literally left Los Angeles Sunday night. What is happening in Los Angeles and the way it is being depicted is not accurate. We're talking about a square mile out of a 500 square mile city. Most people are not experiencing it the way we are showing it on television, and I think we have to be very careful because there are not riots in the street. There are some bad actors, and they need to be held accountable, but we have to be careful with the language we use because if we say riots, we cause unnecessary fear, and the real fear is when military people start flooding our streets unnecessarily.
So anything
she's
rather
really,
than just tell.
She's really stupid, isn't she?
Here's some good news. And we're going back to your telephone calls. In
wow,
just a
no IQ.
800-848-9222. Dominic Carter
dumbass.
with you up until the top of the hour. Here's some good news. Over 330 illegals, according to the White House, that were arrested, taking part in the LA riots. They will now be deported.
And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail. So who is funding these illegal aliens who are coming in with this very professional riot gear? It's a question everyone in this room who cares about truth should be asking. And we encourage your help in trying to get to the bottom of that question.
White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt. Let's go back to your telephone calls. Line 3, Silas, Staten Island. What's on your mind, Silas?
Yeah, one of the solutions to getting New York back to a safer city will be getting Curtis Lewa in office, because they say, oh, well, he's not polling well or whatever. So you want me to vote for a Democrat party just because?
No, well? Silas, I want you to vote for whoever it is that you feel best represents your interests. But at a certain point, we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost impossible. Take Mr. Lewa out of it. It's almost impossible for any Republican in a blue city as New York.
You nailed it right there. Look at every state that we heard Ice Cube talking, and he said that Donald Trump, when he reached out to Donald Trump to help out with ideas for what they wanted to help the black community, Donald Trump listened and started implementing ideas. When Donald Trump didn't win and Biden got in, the Democrat Party dismissed everything that they said and stopped any programs that was helping the black community. And we've got phonies like Gavin Newsom and, by the way, Don Lemon, for incompetent people who get a job in a very good position, and they prove to the world they're not up to snuff. They can't do the job, just like the mayor and the governors of California. They can't do it. And Adams has already proved he can't do the job. So why would you vote for him again? Why would you put an incompetent back in when he's proved to you he's no good? So all I'm saying to people is give Curtis a shot.
Therein lies the problem. But the problem for Mr. Sliwa and any Republican is the R, and certainly in the Democratic area, is the R next to his name. We'll see what happens in the general election. The primary right around the corner.
This is New York's talk leader, the crown jewel of talk radio.
10 o'clock in the morning, hitting out this deal.
WRCR Haverstraw, 107.1 WLIR.
I'm going to let it roll for another hour, so.
At 59 past the
You want to chime in? Feel free to chime in. And thank you for watching.
It's Thursday, June 12th. Good morning. I'm Lisa Ritchie. The White House says President Trump is going through the proposed trade deal with China. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Trump's happy with the work his trade team has done.
China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States. And we have agreed to fully comply with the Geneva Agreement as well.
The framework still needs final approval by both leaders. A federal judge is ruling detained Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil cannot be deported or detained by the Trump administration. Khalil was detained in March by immigration agents and is being held at a facility in rural Louisiana. The Trump administration claims Khalil is an anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas terrorist who should be deported. The order will not go into effect until Friday, giving time for an appeal. Protests against immigration and customs enforcement are spreading across the U.S., with thousands demonstrating yesterday in New York, Chicago, Denver, Milwaukee, and Washington, D.C. Marina Ramos says demonstrators want to send the message that ICE raids are not welcome in their neighborhood.
We're our community, and we have family members, friends who are scared to go out. I'm scared for them.
And they should not, and they should be scared. If they're fucking illegal.
There had been a significant amount of criminal behavior in Tuesday's anti-ICE protests. A Pakistani man has been arrested for allegedly plotting a mass shooting at a Jewish center in New York City on the anniversary of October 7th. James Flippin has more.
FBI Director Kash Patel says the Bureau and their partners discovered and put to a stop the plot of 20-year-old Mohammed Khan, who lives in Canada. Patel says Khan planned to travel to New York and commit the attack in support of ISIS, but was instead arrested by Canadian authorities last September as a result of the FBI investigation. Khan has now been extradited to the U.S. facing terrorism charges. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
The nominees are set in the race for New Jersey's next governor. Lisa Carton has more.
Projections show that Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill will take on Republican former Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli this fall for term-limited Governor Murphy's job. She secured 34% of the vote in Tuesday's crowded Democratic primary, with Newark Mayor Ras Baraka coming in second. On the Republican side, Ciattarelli trounced radio host Bill Spadilla with 67% of the vote.
We won because we talked about the issues that matter, the critical issues facing our state, and my plan for a safer, more prosperous, and affordable New Jersey.
The contest will be an early sign of how voters are responding to President Donald Trump's second term. I'm Lisa Carton.
CMTA and city public schools are teaming up. in a new campaign to combat subway surfing. That's the practice of standing on top of the train as it hurtles down the track. The Ride Inside, Stay Alive campaign features real city high schoolers making pre-recorded announcements, like this one.
Hi, I'm Dahlia, and I'm a New York City student. People who survive brutal subway surfing accidents all say the same thing. It's not worth it. Ride inside, stay alive.
There's a total of 8 recordings from different high schoolers that will start being heard on subways throughout the city this week. The program also features comic books that tell the story of those impacted by subway surfing. 6 people in New York City died in 2024. Soccer fans will be flocking from around the world to MetLife Stadium for the FIFA World Cup next summer. But that's not all. Head of the New York, New Jersey host committee, Alex Lasry, says Liberty State Park in Jersey City is going to have the official World Cup Fan Festival.
A 39-day celebration featuring live match broadcasts, a blockbuster lineup of entertainment, interactive activations, local food, global culture.
There will be 8 soccer matches, including the World Cup final. The creative genius behind the Beach Boys, founder Brian Wilson, has died at the age of 82. He's considered one of the most innovative songwriters of the 20th century and considered the creator of the California sound. Wilson struggled with mental health issues most of his life. The group's Pet Sounds album was groundbreaking for its time. In sports, Olympic gold medalist Mary Lou Retton has entered a no-contest plea to driving under the influence charges. The West Virginia native and former gymnast was charged with misdemeanor DUI in her hometown of Claremont on May 17th. Retton says she takes full responsibility for her actions and is committed to making a positive change in her life. Your forecast overnight: clear skies, the low 69 degrees. Later on today, we'll see some hazy sunshine. It'll be breezy, a bit warmer with a high of 89. And Friday's outlook is partly sunny with the chance of a late day thunderstorm, the high 80. We have clear skies outside of our Midtown studios right now. Don't forget today, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch will be joining Sid Rosenberg on Sid and Friends in the Morning at 8:15. That's right, New York City's top cop, Jessica Tisch, on with Sid at 8:15 this morning. I'm Lisa Ritchie. Remember, the news never stops at WABCRadio.com.
Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Cats and Pudding, hosted by Jen DeLandro.
I have the one and only Mario Bosco. Why were you taking this golf class? Just because you wanted to
drive around the block is huge. The Darryl Zanuck building, so I started borrowing golf carts on the studio lot. But I would crash them or I'd drop them. I borrowed all of them like Peter Blue, left them bad with no plug-in. I was naive. And then I'd go to The Simpsons, because Simpsons was a quiz.
Right.
I'd go to The Simpsons and I go, excuse me, can I please borrow your golf cart? I'm like, well, we only need it for, it's very important, and I'm weak, and I'm on NYPD Blue. Are you on NYPD Blue? I go, yeah, I'm a cast member now. Oh, nice. A cast member. Who's a guest star? I crashed one golf cart because I saw
You see what other feet is there?
Yeah, I smashed the front end of the golf cart. So let me drive your car.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now.
Not much going on here.
Podcast platform. This is The Other Side of Midnight.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
With Lionel.
Alrighty, everything that's been in the news so far, and immediately say to yourself, I don't want to talk about it. Because it's boring the way people talk about it. You're missing the point. You're missing the point. Oh, this guy's walking in again? Riff, what is the matter? I think he just makes this up. I think he comes in and just takes pictures of stuff. We had a guy one time who was doing meter readings. It was an engineer. I said, "What are you doing?" Another one told me years ago. A great friend of mine. I don't want to mention his name. His name was Frank. He used to work at the old ABC, and he always walked around with a clipboard or with carts. For those who you've never seen a cart. Rita Cosby and I were just talking before about, but these kids today. So anyway, he always looked like he was busy. But Frank, I got it. I'm okay, fine. He never did anything. He just walked around with a. Well, he did. I don't want to say that because you know who he was. He just walked around with a clipboard and just never. I don't know what he did, but he retired from what? Years ago, when Joe at a station had a promotion person who told somebody, "Listen, when you get in early, open my door. Just do me a favor, leave a cup of coffee in the middle on the, just leave it, and I've got a sweater on the, just leave the light on, have the radio down, like I'm here." We say, "Boy, that Jerry, he kind of works his ass off. He's here every morning." I said, "Did you ever see Jerry?" As a matter of fact, I did. Did you ever see Jerry? We figured out Jerry is no Jerry. Somebody came in and this is before everything is on camera now. Everything's on camera. Somebody's watching me. Rockwell, I think. And we found out there was, I think the person was ever there, but looked busy. Had the radio turned down low to the station, sweater on the chair or something, and a coffee. And I always said, check the coffee. If you see a plastic, this coffee's at least 8 hours old. I'm like Columbo. I'm going in and saying, this person's a fraud. Here's a great one for you. We had a woman one time on maternity leave. When maternity leave first started, she came back and said, "Marlene, what? Where the hell? Jeez, you didn't know I've been gone from it?" No, nobody knew. Nobody knew. There's another one for you. During during COVID,
The Rona.
more people were not so much. What am I trying to say? What am I trying to say? That's what in this show. What is he talking about? More people remain on the payroll, and they were never taken off. So people were still getting checks. Years ago, I was one of the first podcasters ever. Talkers Magazine, we had an award, the Pioneers of Podcast. And I remember going to a Talkers meeting right over there. It was in this. We had them up, lock them up. And we had the Talkers.
Shit is over, baby.
The Bible of talk radio, and it was in the basement.
It's not sustainable for them,
It was like a rumpus room.
They're gonna die in that hill.
And I'm not exactly Lou Alcindor.
Fucking liberals are stupid.
This is the smallest room. Don't jump. Whatever you do, don't jump. Anyway, I was doing a kind of a symposium thing, and the first 20 minutes was, what's podcast? These are people in the business.
Thank you for your service.
Names in talk radio is what's podcast?
You guys doing a great job.
I swear to God, you're not gonna.
You guys don't get paid enough.
Radio's free. They said that about TV, cable. Wow, cable's different.
Sure deserve a raise.
Anyway, that's it. I was one of these first people who did this stuff. And when I first started, you could pay for it. I set up with this building company. I haven't done that iteration of this for 10 years. I get a check every month, like $20. And somebody somewhere, I think they died. I don't know who these people are. Thank you. It's always $21.56. Okay. And before I go is, hello, you've just died. Oh my God. So this is heaven. Yes, I'm St. Peter. Anything you want to know? Yeah. Who was sending me that check all those years? You want to know about Kennedy's assassination? No. Who was paying this $21 a month? You ever get a SAG-AFTRA check? And if you SAG-AFTRA, those are the most embarrassed. Those are embarrassing. I was on the Ricky Lake show one time with Curtis Lewa years ago on Ricky Lake, and the issue was you must forgive me. Yesterday was at the doc, had the physical thing. Oh my God, in the Bronx, which is a whole other story. And I'll tell you about that, which is another thing altogether. So I'm a little shingad today. But there was this whole deal. Anyway, I should stop. You got 50,000 things going on. You know, sometimes you try your best. You try your best. You try your best. You say something. Have you ever find yourself doing that? Like all of a sudden you say, what was I saying? What am I doing? Because I've got 9 million things going on. And plus, I'm in a room with 4 screens, including that idiot, Stephen A. Smith. He is an idiot. He is a jabrul. Why do people listen to him? Now, you see what I just did? I brought up Stephen A. Smith. And you're saying, you never finished the sentence. You said it before. It's like, I'm done with that sentence. I have something new to say. Now, if you don't like it, you can go to another station. Go across town and see what they're talking about. Clean radio, light FM. You want to hear that? You want to hear that? Go ahead, change it. Go ahead if you don't like it. Sometimes in the mid-sentence I go, this wasn't going where I thought it was going. In any event, I want to talk about Brian Wilson. I've actually talked about Brian Wilson because he was a bona fide genius. This word genius is thrown around for reasons I do not understand. Genius, and literally, because I was watching yesterday, trying to wind down and relax. I was watching YouTube videos of women getting arrested in their cars, which relaxes me to no end. I gotta tell you this story. I'm not gonna take the doctor, but when you get older, you gotta realize this. You gotta. You could skip physicals for years when you were young, but then when you get older, you got just to make sure, because things will happen all of a sudden, like, wow, how long is your foot drag like that? What? Wow. Are you notice any tingling? What? Cat Williams is the best thing one time he said, I'm not going to sound it, because when you imitate Cat Williams, you're going to say, you're a racist because you're sounding like him. I don't understand that. We had a fellow years ago from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Doug Williams was the coach. Was the quarterback. Couldn't understand a word he said. I don't know what he said. It reminded me of the wasn't it one of the Cosby kids? It wasn't Fat Albert. It was one of those kids. Who was he? Goes, I'm a beaver, dad, the heaver. Is it called Mushmouth? Mushmouth, yeah. That was Doug Williams. He goes, you're a racist. I said, he sounds like it. I said, by the way, who's this? I don't know. Doug Williams, you're a racist. Anyway. What the hell was I talking about? Somebody help me here. Don't just sit there. Call me 800-848-9222. I'm tired of these damn riots. What am I supposed to do about the riots? There's nothing to say. Show up with water cannons, drop a net on them, or shut the up about the riots. Do something. Let me ask you this. Do you think President Trump has a body double? I'll get to Brian Wilson in a moment. But do you think, doesn't the president sometimes, like somebody said, he's walking kind of funny? What do you mean? I don't know. Does he have a brace or anything? He's kind of walking funny. Body double. He's walking funny. Maybe he should go to the doctor. Which reminds me, a friend of mine said the other day, listen to this. He said, when you get older, you'll love this. Certain things happen to you. Not me, because I pretty much lived a pretty sedentary life. So that when I'm older, I don't notice things aren't working. My friend says, I can't play golf anymore. I haven't played golf. I used to hike. What are you, Yosemite fan? Hike. I don't hike. No, I don't know. Don't you feel when you get older? No. Do you have any ancient pains? No. Get a foot cramp every now and then. Big deal. Why? Because you were spending your whole life, trying to climb the Adirondack. I never did that. So my senescence is wonderful. Yesterday, this woman, everybody at this hospital, what was this clinic thing, they're all from Jamaica. I don't know what they're saying. I do know that they could demand. What? It's like Bob Marley on drugs. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make Jamaican jokes. I didn't understand what she's talking about. And the funny part is, she speaks English. I just say, where are you from? I'm from Ghana. I have a very great friend of mine. He's my gas station guy. My gas station guy. And he's from Ghana, and he always sounds like he's crying. He calls everybody Baba. Now, Baba in Sicilian means stupid woman. Babo is daddy, but Baba means Baba. Baba. You okay? This is his greeting. Oh, no. Oh. This is how he says hello. This is when he's happy. And they said, well, you know, he's from Ghana. Why? I don't care where he's from. He's crying. He's now crying. Those are how those people. What do you mean, those people? So anyway, this woman yesterday said, what? I don't. I do what that big there. Take your blood pressure. Pressure? Are you saying I have pressure? Oh, blood pressure. Oh, blood pressure. And she's looking at me like, you idiot, don't you understand me? No, I don't understand you because I don't know what you're saying. And the other one's even worse. God bless, because you know when you go to hospitals. I don't know where they. I'm going to do a summer replacement show. People that were too unintelligible for the hospital. Oh, no. That's my surgeon. What? It's a long story. I tell you this story years ago. I'm changing this time. I just thought of it. I refused to take the breathalyzer. Pay attention, Rip. Pay attention to this. They always have to give you the implied consent hearing. New York state law requires you to take a mandatory breath test in the event that you're arrested. If you don't take the breath test, you'll lose your license, and you'll rip out a kidney and you'll be tortured. But so they have to read you the implied consent. Okay? And in order for you to have your license taken away, you have to be read this. So sometimes there's an administrative hearing and everybody knows exactly what it meant, but the idea is that he didn't know. You never read it to him. He's from another country. He's blind. Why he's driving, I have no idea. You know, you can be deaf and drive. You can't drive with headphones, but you can be deaf. Go figure that one out. Drunk driving is against the law, but there are parking lots of bars. Go figure that out. So anyway, so I'm with this guy, and I've got this Rasta dude in my clinic. And I said, we're never going to, even if you're found not guilty of DUI, you still lose your license for like a year, 2 years, because you refuse. So if you can win that implied consent hearing, you're in. But nobody ever wins because you knew what it meant. Anyway, this guy, this man, I'm doing Robert Klein doing the imitation. I can't do any imitations of that or Australian. I can't. But he's there next to me, and the trooper, the state trooper says, "I'll be honest with you, because I knew him. Your client, I don't know if he understood." I said, "Really?" So the guy next to me starts tugging me on my chest. I said, "Not now." He says, "Well," I asked him where he was from, and he said, "Jamaica." And the guy tugged me. I said, "If you tug me one more time, I'm going to stick a pencil in your heart." Stop it! The judge says, is he from Jamaica? Yes, he is, Your Honor. I'm not saying anything. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know if he understood what this was about. I said, well, thank you. Well, I never said anything. And the guy's tugging me, and I said, you just don't get it, do you? So finally the judge says, I don't normally grant this, but I think there's some good reason to believe he didn't. I'm going to grant it. So he kept his license. I said, okay, Rasta man. Okay, Peter Tosh, what is it? What was so important? He goes, I speak English. I can't do the accent. I speak English. He goes, I know! You're a schmuck. Shut up. We won. What are you going to do, clarify it? No, you don't understand, Judge. I understood, so when I refused the breathalyzer, I knew damn well what I was doing. But most people thought that Jamaicans don't speak English because if you've heard them, and God bless them, sometimes you're wondering, what are they saying? How did you get... normally there's a little bit of an accent. Like you say, okay, he's Cuban. Okay, I understand it. He's Puerto Rican. Okay, I understand it. They speak Spanish. Chinese. I understand it. Sometimes Liverpoolian, Geordies, Newcastle. I don't know what they're saying. But Jamaican, you've got to understand something. Sometimes it's, at least for me, maybe it's me, I have a difficult... By the way, if you're Jamaican with the thickest accent, please, come aboard. Tell me your own particular stories because we love you. Because think what you did for weed. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Everybody... But I just think that sometimes when somebody's giving you health advice, it's not good for a guy in the stretcher to say, what? Not good. Air traffic controllers, not good. Poison control. You gotta help me, my son. A lion strikes Drano. What do I do? Okay, bye. on, you think, what? What? Sometimes clarity is important. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've got relatives. I don't understand what they're saying. I never understood them a day of my life. Never. My grandfather never spoke English. I don't know what he ever said. I don't think he ever said anything. I had an Aunt Rose who talked like this. Nino. No making bacon. Pizza? What? That was it. Nino. Who's Mino? Who are you? What is she saying? Nobody understood. So I asked my grandmother, Nina, do you understand Rose? No. I said, well, what does she say? I don't know. She's your sister. And they said, well, she's Sicilian. She's not speaking Sicilian. I said, well, what's the matter with her? I said, I don't know. And I would get to the bottom of it. People had this idea that she was, well, I said, no, I think she was, and I can't say the R word. I can't say it. You can on the internet, but not, I don't want to say it, because I don't like that R word. You know what I mean? Subtard works okay. Subtard, it's just not the same. And I thought there was something wrong with my Aunt Rose. Now that I've taken you through this through 22 minutes, I want you to ask yourself this question. What am I talking about? Where did I start? Where are we now? Where is this labyrinth he took me through? What happened? What was this? You know that Riff Raff has to fill out a report among his many duties now to detail and diagram the subject matter of the story, where I'm going, so we can turn it to the promotion people and say, is there any particular moment of your show that we could use? I said, no. No, I just wanted to I got this camera here. Does anybody watch this damn thing? This is like the most, what year was this camera? What is this? It's like a ball turret of a B-52. What is this? Does anybody ever see this? Anyway, is there a particular moment of your show that we can turn to our affiliates? No. Well, is it the fact that maybe this segment is too short? No. Well, what if we just give them the whole 15 minutes or 20 minutes? That won't make any difference. That'll make it worse. So what are you talking about exactly? I said, I have no idea. Because it's the other side of midnight. Oh, see, that's the beautiful part about this. Overnight, you can do anything. You can say, this makes no sense what you're saying. It's overnight. Oh, okay. It's like he speaks Jamaican. Oh. So we just accept it. You know what I'm saying? We just accept it. Coming up, we're going to talk to Melvin. And I love this, by the way. This is great. All of a sudden, somebody will start calling. You know what else is good about Riff, by the way, who does the best board hopping, which is very critical. He'll write whatever. People will call him and say, hey, I would have mentioned a competitor on another radio station. Okay. And I say, thank you. And he tells me all this. And I'm like, hey, this guy's going to, I want to crank him on something he said. Thank you. Why do people do this? But this one next, he's going to talk about Doug Williams. And I don't know what this means. I'm going to read this. This is, and by the way, when I read this screen, this is his typification. This is his adumbration. This is Riff Raff's idea. This will help you. Melvin in the Bronx, parentheses, Doug Williams, diarrhea in your mouth. This is what he writes. Okay, I'm game. Oh, we can talk about the riots. Want to talk about the riots? How about the tariffs? Anybody with the tariffs? Anybody know about the tariffs? I don't know. Did the tariffs work? I don't know. Beats the hell out of me. How about dozens of icebreakers? Don't you love to see a good riot? Wouldn't you love to see somebody just getting clubbed with like a 10-foot pole, or bring out these wild marmosets, like wild rabid monkeys or something, or the Malinois, what are those dogs that can run up mountains, or a cane corso, or a bull mastiff, or all of a sudden you hear like elephants, like they all open up a menagerie from a circus. Because I've never rioted in my life, okay? And I don't understand riot. You want to complain? That's fine. You want to be anti anything? That's fine. But the moment you riot, okay. I'm going to take a break right now. It's 26 past the hour, and I want you to ask yourself, how does he do it? How does he do it? And more importantly, what the hell is he talking about? That's the name of the new show. It's called What the Hell Is He Talking About? The overnight sensation. You know, our numbers are through the roof. People are saying, how do you do this? I said, I don't even know what I'm doing. This is the Lionel Show, the overnight sensation. See that? More coming up, I think.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/stone or call 800-747-6589 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold, and it's 100% tax-free.
Donate now to toysfortots.org. Working year-round, delivering hope to children at Christmas time and beyond. In 2024, Toys for Tots provided over 30 million toys to nearly 13 million children in need. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org. Since 1947, Toys for Tots has distributed 708 million toys to 314 million deserving children. Working year-round. Toys for Tots. Donate now. Go to toysfortots.org.
77 WABC, the crown jewel of talk radio, heard worldwide in 173 countries and all 50 states. WABC is committed to live and local radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. See what 77 WABC can do for you and your business. Call 929-552-7175 and advertise with 77 WABC. This morning at 8:15, Sid Rosenberg talks with NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch about crime, ICE agents, and quality of life in New York City. No topic is off limits. Sid Rosenberg, NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, this morning at 8:15 on Sid and Friends in the Morning, 77 WABC. Listen at home. Enable the 77 WABC Alexa skill today. Say,
Play 77 WABC.
it's The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
This is all Brian Williams. Let it play a little bit. That's all him. It's the four freshmen who turned him up. Beatles, Lennon, McCartney, George Martin. Beach Boys, Brian Wilson. You got that worthless Dennis who got all tangled up with Manson. And then Carl, who was, you know, when it was Al Jardine. What are you doing?
Raise the top income rate to 49. You're going to have a 1% wealth tax annually, and you're going to have to raise the capital gains rate to 40.
Huh.
So if all we're going to do is stabilize debt to GDP, that's the big beastly bill that's somewhere down the road. And again, who knows when it's going to be. Remember, you have Italy, France, and Japan, who on the current projections will be in worse fiscal shape than we are, and they seem to be doing okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why we keep going with the kayfabe in wrestling, the suspended reality, where we like to watch the show, but we know it's not real. So we know that these 6% budget deficits are not sustainable in the long run, but it's okay because it's okay now. It's okay in the short run, and it feels good, and it's not hard. It's actually really easy. Remember, in the first Trump administration, he normalized 4% budget deficits. That's what we had pre-COVID. And now in this administration, he's normalizing 6% budget deficit.
So that was Paul Tudor-Jones, the co-chairman and CIO of Tudor Investments. Of course, very interesting conversation. I think one of the clear things to pull out of this is the prediction of 10% drop in the dollar for this year.
Some of the special tax changes as well, very much in focus as well. The time 6:32 here in London. A very good morning if you're just joining us. I'm Stephen Carroll.
And I'm Caroline Hepke. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. We're live in London. Just briefly in the markets. So stock futures are down on the concerns around fresh tariffs being announced or delivered by the president of the US in the next couple of weeks. S&P 500 even is down a quarter of 1%. The dollar is stronger. Gold is up by half of 1%, and oil prices are down. Those are the markets.
Our top stories. There are fresh signs the UK could be on course for the biggest exodus of wealth in the country's recent history. Bloomberg analysis of 5 million company filings shows a spike in business leaders leaving. More than 4,400 disclosed an overseas move in the last year, up around 20% on previous years. Bloomberg's ultra-net worth reporter Ben Stupple says the full extent of the moves won't be known for a year, but the signs are concerning.
But what we're seeing on the ground, the witnesses in the private wealth community in influential parts of Britain's services-heavy workforce, and they're seeing the damage right now.
Stubble spoke to more than a dozen lawyers and other advisors to the ultra-rich for his reporting. The individuals who have already exited command or share part of fortunes totaling at least $110 billion, according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index.
Now, US President Donald Trump says that he is planning to send letters to trading partners within the next 2 weeks to set unilateral tariff rates. That move comes ahead of a July 9th deadline to impose higher duties on dozens of economies once the current 90-day pause elapses. So far, the White House has only reached a yet-to-be-implemented trade framework with the UK and also a tariff truce with China. Speaking to reporters yesterday, President Trump had this to say.
Well, we're dealing with Japan, we're dealing with South Korea, we're dealing with a lot of them. We're dealing with about 15 countries, but as you know, we have about 150 plus, and you can't do that. So we're going to be sending letters out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, to countries, telling them what the deal is, like I did with EU.
President Trump, speaking as US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, warned that the EU is likely to be among the last trade deals with the US that it completes. And he was speaking to CNBC. Lutnick said, "I'm optimistic that we can get there with Europe, but Europe will probably be the very, very end."
And the United States has ordered some staff to depart its embassy in Baghdad and authorized families of military service members to leave the Middle East. Officials say the decision is due to heightened security risks after Iran threatened to strike American bases if it's attacked over its nuclear program. And those are our top stories.
Now, coming up in the next part of Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, another key interview. We'll be hearing from the Double Line Capital CEO Jeffrey Gundlach talking about debt and investing at the Bloomberg Global Credit Forum in Los Angeles. So that conversation next. This is Bloomberg.
This is New York's only 24-hour source for world markets and breaking business news. Bloomberg 1130. Coming up, the latest market-moving headlines from Bloomberg. First, an update from our partners at CBS News.
CBS News Brief. With the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks seemingly stalled, Israel appears ready to launch a strike on Iran. President Trump said Wednesday night,
They can't have a nuclear person. They can't have it. We're not going to allow that.
The State Department told non-essential staff in some Middle East U.S. embassies to leave the region. A peaceful protest against immigration raids in New York City turned tense and violent Tuesday night. Deputy Mayor Cass Daughtry.
They decided to throw items, garbage cans, rocks, bricks, anything that basically wasn't nailed down, and they were picking up and throwing it, and they were putting debris in the street.
President Trump is planning action against California's automotive emission standards.
President Trump will end what he calls an electric vehicle mandate by revoking California's ability to set higher emission standards than the rest of the country. The state of California has announced it will challenge the move in court.
CBS's climate reporter, Chrissy Wolf. CBS News Brief. I'm Michael Foscano.
Get the news you need at the click of a button inside your car. The new Bloomberg Business app, now featuring Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. All your favorite Bloomberg radio shows, plus news at your fingertips. Download it free in the Apple App Store or on Google Play.
Stay connected with Bloomberg wherever you are with Bloomberg Podcasts. On the Circuit with Emily Chang, Microsoft's 50-year